pack that we were excited to add. And then at 168, Owen Papo, Papo, I better get that pronunciation right. I said both. I got to figure that out. Papo. Sorry, Owen. So Owen was actually, it was interesting. Owen was one of the 2 guys that came for our first 30 visit. So he was our guinea pig for our new process that we were doing with 30 visits this year. Made a really good impression on us. Another guy that we were excited to add, linebacker, good speed, physical player. And then the 2 picks that we originally had, going into the day before the Detroit pick, at the top of the 6th round, number 180, Keitrell Clark from Louisville. Another guy that we had a chance to bring in here on a 30 visit. Big personality. He's a fun guy to talk to. He was having a heck of a party, draft day party. So when we called him, he was fired up, and we're anxious to get him here. And then the last pick of the day, number 213, Dante Stills, another guy who was in Las Vegas at the East-West game, defensive lineman, has been highly productive in his career. Brings some inside-outside pass rush. So, we were excited to add another line of scrimmage player. So, that's where we ended up. We've been cranking away here since the draft ended on undrafted free agency. The guys are upstairs trying to get some things ironed out with that. So that's always another part of the draft that sometimes goes unnoticed, but it's an area that we put a lot of work into this year, and we're intentional with the guys that we were adding. And so we're excited to get a few new guys in here to add to our rookie class. So that's where we're at. We're excited about the last 3 days. We think we added some good players. We came into the draft with 8 picks. And we
In this video, you will learn 5-star. Now, as for the rest of the team, I won't mention this for every team over and over again, so just make sure to have a healer, and Natasha is your free-to-play unit you can rely on for this job, but you can also go with Bailu or a strong shielder. And as for the last slot, Serval works really nice here, especially in Simulated Universe, together with his multiple targets, and even Welt can slow enemies with his technique before the battle, or from his skill, which can jump on multiple targets, and even the ultimate's imprisonment effect applies reduced speed. And Dunhung mentioned some upgrades. Now, starting with Welt, he is a really good debuffer and a pretty decent damage dealer, but you definitely need to bring a single target DPS to ramp up the team's performance, and Dunhung is excellent here. Welt and Dawn have a perfect synergy with each other, because Dawn's ultimate and basic attack deal a lot more damage when the enemy is slowed, and while Dawn himself can apply slow from his skill, it might get resisted. However, Welt can slow enemies with his technique before the battle, or from his skill, which can jump on multiple targets, and even the ultimate's imprisonment effect applies reduced speed. You can see for yourself how Dawn's ultimate damage increases by nearly 30% when there is a slow applied from Welt. So this combo definitely works, and Dawn doesn't have to rely on his own skill to apply slow. Now, as for the rest of the team, I won't mention this for every team over and over again, so just make sure to have a healer, and Natasha is your free-to-play unit you can rely on for this job, but you can also go with Bailu or a strong shielder. And as for the Lake Empire, Touch of Dawn is worth Mark of Nihility pretty nice here, especially in Simulated Universe. Together with Welt, they can both benefit from the Path of Nihility buffs, or you could otherwise go with Asta to speed up the team and cover fire toughness, or March 7th if you need extra survivability. Finally, for upgrades, Zila instead of Dawn is worth going for. It's actually my main team right now, but I wouldn't say that she's mandatory, more like a variation. Although, since she can self-buff her speed and Welt can reduce the speed on enemies, they have a nice synergy going with each other. Now, this next team is actually one of my favorites, but before we continue, thanks to Prime Gaming for sponsoring. There's Build Clara that I've got good news for you. You can build an insane team with her by using March 7th. You see, enemies are more skill does and Asta can utilize this, and you could further double down on this and include Fire Trailblazer. Although, again, you will basically only cover 2 elements if using a healer like Natasha, so I would suggest instead to pick a different element that need Yun once again. That attack buff and energy restoration is really is all in Natasha. Later, but one the team with an insane shield, Japard is here to help you out. Honestly, he is a pretty flexible unit, but one team that works super well with free-to-play units is Japard, Donghong, Serval, and Natasha. Later on, it's very likely that Japard will be able to tank a lot of damage and quickly recover his ultimate meter, so you could replace Natasha with another free-to-play unit like Asta, or go for an upgrade unit like Tingyun. You could also replace Serval with Arlen to save up on those skill points, or include Hook, who has great single target damage, and then you can go for that ultimate boss killing team. Arlen is actually really great here because he does sacrifice his own health, but since Japard will be tanking here and applying shield for everyone, it's quite easy to keep him alive. Although if you are struggling, you could keep him alive with a team like Japard, Arlen, Tingyun, and Natasha. So Tingyun, for example, can use her ultimate to quickly recover either Natasha's or Japard's ultimate, and then one of them can apply emergency healing or shield. But otherwise, Japard isn't really locked down to one single team he is good at, and I would say the biggest priority when building him is to build a hunt or destruction character with strong single target damage alongside him. Also, speaking of improving power, don't forget to grab the 5-star preservation light cone from Herder's shop. Not only does it help Japard resist from getting debuffed with extra effect resistance he's getting from it, but he also can gain a free shield every few turns, so that turns him into an even better tank. If you pulled Yanqiang, there's a real good free-to-play boss killer team you can build, and it revolves around Fire Trailblazer, which you can unlock after completing the first planet story. Now, the whole team looks like this: Yanqiang, Fire Trailblazer, Serval, and Natasha. It's a bit of a high-risk, high-reward comp, since there's still a chance Yanqiang can get attacked. You see, Yanqiang gains this powerful ability called Soul Steel Sync after using his skill, which increases his crit rate and damage by a lot, and it even improves his ultimate damage. However, if he gets damaged by an enemy, he loses this ability, and this significantly lowers his damage. So, what can Yanqiang is this ability, and this significantly lowers his damage. So, So make sure Yanqiang is on the opposite corner from Fire Trailblazer, since even if the tank can force enemies to target him, a lot of them have splash damage, meaning adjacent allies can get hit, and you don't want that to happen for Yanqiang. Now, the other big thing is that he can still retain this ability if he gets hit and has a shield. As long as the damage gets absorbed by the shield, he will be okay. He won't lose the Soul Steel Sync ability, and he can continue dealing insane damage. Now, when it comes to upgrades, you definitely want to use Tingyun or Bronya. Both of them are excellent damage buffers, although Tingyun's capability to restore energy is super valuable here, since Yanqiang can unload so much single target damage from his ultimate, it's not even funny. You could also go for Japard instead of Fire Trailblazer, although you will be losing out on fire type enemy coverage. However, a good rule of thumb when building Yanqiang's team would be to have a tank, a healer, and then either a buffer or a debuffer. Also, don't forget to grab free Eidolons from this shop for Fire Trailblazer, hunt some chests, and complete the planet's quests to acquire the currency for that extra power. Finally, yet again, don't forget Herder's shop. I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but the 5-star Hunt Light Cone gives a huge boost to Yan's damage potential, since he can essentially get extra 16% crit rate with only the first Superimposition refinement level. And combining this with his Soul Steel Sync ability, with a little bit more critical rate from relics, you can basically focus on just building attack and critical damage, turning him into a monster of a single target damage killer. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned Bronya or Bailu teams in this video. Well, that's because both of them are extremely flexible. Almost in every encounter, you will need a healer, so Bailu is a no-brainer choice to go for, while Bronya is best utilized with a strong damage dealer, and let's be honest, you will have at least one good damage dealer in your team, like Don Hung, Arlen, Zila, and so on. That's where Bronya shines the most. But let's say you obtain Bailu and still have no idea what team to build. Well, if by just using free-to-play units, you can go for a team like Don Hung, Serval, Asta, and Bailu. There's some great buffing, single target damage, and type coverage you will have. And as for Bronya, the team is very similar to this one, except you would replace Asta or Serval. But that's basically it. Let me know in the comments which 5-star unit you obtained from the beginner's banner, and maybe me or somebody else can help you out with more suggestions. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate if you could press the like button and help support my channel. And if you can, make sure to check out today's sponsor. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.
Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. If you're like most of us and are wondering which 4-star characters should I invest into, then this is probably the video for you. I'll be talking about the 8 best 4-star free-to-play friendly characters to build, in my opinion, in Honkai Star Rail. Now, as was mentioned about 8 seconds ago, this is, of course, my opinion on the 8 best 4-star characters to build. For each of these 4-star characters, I'll be talking about their pros, some of their cons, and whether or not you should build them, and perhaps how future-proof I think they are. Since we're all able to get a guaranteed 5-star standard banner character, I will talk about them if they happen to be great alternatives and a reason for you not to build a character on this list. Number 8 on this list is one of the 4-star characters that we get thanks to 10 million pre-registrations, which is absolutely insane. And that character is Serval. Serval is currently the best AoE lightning breaker. And an interesting little tidbit about Honkai Star Rail is that some of the enemies, like robots, tend to share a common weakness. Robots tend to be weak to lightning, and there are quite a few robots in this game that you will fight regularly. Serval is also fairly reliant on her DOT damage, which lasts for 2 turns. This means that you're able to weave in basic attacks as well to make Serval a much more skill point friendly character, and her very accessible Eidolon 1 allows her to hit 2 targets with her basic attack, which doubles her ability to break lightning toughness with just her basic attacks. Her skill hits 3 targets, and her ultimate hits all the targets. So as you can see, this character is designed to break lightning in a fantabulous AoE fashion. Now, why might you not want to build Serval? Serval has particularly bad single target DPS, and honestly, single target DPS is very valuable. Also, the next featured 5-star character, Jing Yuan, looks to be very powerful, and he's also an AoE lightning character, which will basically power creep Serval. So if you're planning on going for Jing Yuan, I personally would think twice about building Serval. Lastly, if you prefer Arlen, well, we don't really need 2 lightning DPSs on our account right now in my opinion, or at least I don't think that's the best investment of our resources, so yeah. Up next is the only completely free healer in the game, Natasha. Especially in the early game, healing is just such a great quality of life. Now you don't need to worry about taking a few stray hits here and there, you're able to effortlessly heal off that damage thanks to our Omega Doctor waifu. However, one of her biggest weaknesses is that she provides no additional offensive utility outside of the standard light cones and relic. Now, why might you not want to build Natasha? If you do have Bailu, especially in the early game, it's hard to justify building Natasha right off the bat. However, in the mid game, when we start tackling Forgotten Halls 11 through 15, where we need 2 teams, Natasha is still great to build, at least for now. And finally, there will absolutely be more healers added to the game, so if you're holding out for other healers, and especially if you got Bailu, then you might want to wait on building Natasha. Our calendar-inspired March 7th is number 6 on this list. March 7th is an all-around great shielder, and she happens to work even better, interestingly, with another shielder, as her counter attack will trigger anytime any character on your team with a shield is hit. March 7th is also a great teammate with Clara specifically, as she can increase Clara's aggro and thus Clara's damage output. March 7th also has a very powerful AoE freeze on her ultimate, which can allow you to actually cheese many fights in this game by bypassing one of the hardest mechanics, which is taking damage and surviving. So yeah, I do recommend building March 7th in particular if you do have Clara. Now if you don't have Bailu or Japard, and you're reaching Forgotten Halls 11 through 15 where you need 2 teams, March 7th will be an invaluable addition as you desperately need that additional survivability. But as we can see, as we add additional shielders and healers, we can see that a character like March 7th's value does go down. So interestingly, my point here is that if you have Bailu, which pretty much solves survivability for your second team, you might not actually want to build March 7th. The 5th most free-to-play friendly character in my opinion is Pela. Pela covets the currently rare defense shred on her ultimate, and it has perfect AoE which hits all enemies, and 100% base chance to inflict exposed on the enemy, which lowers their defense. And since her basic attack, skill, and ultimate all deal ice damage, Pela is a reasonable icebreaker as well. And since Pela is mainly an ultimate spamming bot, you can spam her basic attacks otherwise to generate skill points. And while I haven't experimented much with it, Pela's skill can actually remove a buff from an enemy. This might have some really interesting applications that can trivialize some fights, although I'm personally not quite sure when to use it yet. Finally, Nihility as a path also has a really nice light cone, which is the resolution shines as pearls of sweat, as this can increase your entire team's damage just by shredding defense by hitting an enemy. Now, why might you not want to build Pela? Well, honestly, if you don't need another damage amplifier, or perhaps you're short on damage dealers. And there is definitely an overlap on ice breaking utility with other ice characters like March 7th, Japard, and even Herta should you choose to build Herta. The number 4th best friendly free-to-play character is our boy Dan Heng. Dan Heng is surprisingly a great single-target DPS character and can actually match some of the other hunt characters in damage output in certain situations. He has a slow on his skill, and his ultimate deals tons of bonus damage to an enemy with slow on them. Dan Heng is also great against neutral enemies thanks to his resistance penetration from his talent. He also has access to a great free-to-play friendly 5-star light cone cruising in the Stellar Sea. Now, why might you not want to build Dan? Honestly, one of the reasons that I've personally felt like is that I don't feel like I've really needed a windbreaker in most situations, especially in comparison to other elements like perhaps physical and fire. Also, if you do need wind breaking prowess, Sampo is also really good for that. For raw breaking alone, I would say Sampo's actually better for that. And if you're already investing into other great hunt characters like Seilei or Su Shang, then you might want to hold off on building Dan Heng. And the 3rd best free-to-play friendly character to invest into is, in my opinion, Su Shang. Su Shang is incredible for breaking physical gauges thanks to her high speed and free turn after her ultimate. And physical break deals the most damage, so you can see why this is incredibly valuable. Not only that, but Su Shang can be built for doing high amounts of raw DPS as well. Similar to Dan, she has access to the great 5-star light cone in Herta's shop, and her rather accessible Eidolon 1 helps solve her skill point consumption issue. And there are a ton of dangerous early game and mid game enemies that are weak to physical, namely a lot, but not all, of the human type enemies. So similar to Dan though, if you are building other great hunt characters, you don't really need more than one built hunt character in the early game in my opinion. However, in the mid game it's hard to go wrong with building your Su Shang, as she will really help you in Forgotten Hall. But also if you do have Clara, and Clara's playstyle suits your style more, which is a counter-based playstyle, then perhaps you might want to hold off on building Su Shang. The 2nd most free-to-play friendly character is the Fire Trailblazer. Now, I know technically the Fire Trailblazer is a 5-star character, but I've always counted like the Traveler or the Trailblazer as a 4-star character in all honesty. Anyway, I think at this point, very few of you are surprised to see our Fire MC on this list. She shields everyone literally just by doing anything, and she is one of the best AoE fire breakers in the game. Being able to do an AoE fire break with her enhanced basic attack, and having an ultimate that hits everything and deals a ton of break damage. She even has a perfect taunt, which is one of the best defensive abilities in the game, and also can help her build up her ultimate for even more ultimate breaking AoE fire prowess. Fire Trailblazer is surprisingly overtuned for a completely free main character. Now, when might you not want to build Fire Trailblazer? I'd say if you did get Japard and you prefer building him over the MC, then you can consider not building the Fire Trailblazer. Now, when it comes to Japard versus the Fire Trailblazer, they actually both have their place, and it's hard to say that one completely outclasses the other. So yeah, that's actually how crazy good. It's not that Japard isn't good, it's that the Fire Trailblazer is just that good. And finally, the best 4-star free-to-play friendly character, if you do happen to get her, is Tingyuan. Yep, this character is just ridiculously overtuned. She provides a sizable attack buff with her skill, a bonus damage buff with her, and 50 energy for that ally, and a rather accessible Eidolon even provides 20% speed as well. This is one of the most stacked kits in the entire game. Now, her biggest weakness is that she's not great at breaking enemies' lightning gauges, which is when a character like Serval would be much more valuable. Unfortunately, she's not a completely free-to-play friendly character, as many players won't get lucky to get her, but if you do get her, it's hard to justify not building her unless you just hate fluffy tails and fluffy ears. So there you go, my top 8 free-to-play friendly characters to invest into. Let me know what you think about my choices and if you agree or disagree with it. Be sure to also gently click on that subscribe button for more Honkai, Star Rail, and Genshin Impact content. As always, I appreciate every
picks, and we ended up with 9. And we're excited about those guys that we added, and excited about not only the football players, but the people that we added to the building. So with that, see what you guys got. Go ahead.
It seems like more guys today were experienced, like 4 or 5 years. Is that something you were looking for? And the flip side of that is, what's the benefit from them having more experience?
No, I wouldn't say that was something we were looking for. I think it just kind of happened that way. It's really a case. Dave and I talked about that this morning. You get to the third day of the draft. It's not necessarily you're looking to fill a specific need. We're just looking for good players. So we think we did that, and we like the person, the makeup of the guys that we added, and we were happy with the guys we found.
You guys both talked a lot about versatility among the players you have too. You feel like you got a lot of that with some of the guys that you picked together?
Yeah, I think so. I think we do. I mean, there's whether it's position versatility is always going to be something that we value. So whether it's John Gaines, who's played multiple positions, Catrell Clark has played inside, outside. Dante Stills has played multiple places along the line of scrimmage. So yeah, those are things that it's one of those, goes back to the old saying, the more you can do, it applies to the football team too. So definitely looking forward to adding those guys.
Dave, when you guys have all kind of come together as a new group from other places, how did that mesh together? Was it fairly smooth once you guys got started?
Yeah, I think it's fairly smooth because I've known Monty for 20 plus years. We talk ball probably once a week as friends. We have a close friendship along with a professional respect, and so it's very easy for us to work together because it feels like we've always been working together. I know a lot of the guys on the staff from the road, have personal relationships with those guys. It's probably a lot harder on them to learn the way we talk, the system that they have to. It's our system getting imposed on them, not the other way around. So it's harder on those guys, but they've been great. I mean, they've all been willing to learn. They've all been willing to try new things, and that's really how you grow in this business, is learning different systems. So it's been a great process. It's really the scouts and the people adapting to us are the ones doing most of the work.
This is for both of you guys, because I'm curious about both your positions on this. You guys had a lot of trades. There's a lot of moving parts there. In general, how does that work? I mean, are you saying I'm looking? Are you saying I'm looking? Are you waiting for phone calls? How do you guys get all that honed into a trade?
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, you got it.
Just like that. That's no. No, I think leading up to it, you're always running through scenarios. We're in his office. Hey, what if this happens? What if this happens? All right, if we go back to here, let's try and get up to here. And then some of it is just spontaneous phone rings. Hey, what's up? Guys call him. We'll give you this to move here. Hey, how strongly do we feel about this player? Do we think this player will be still there if we take this trade and drop back? So some of the spur of the moment, and there's a couple guys in the rooms handling the mechanics of it. Charlie Atkins and Rob Kissel did a really good job punching stuff into the computer, using the analytics part of it, plus just a pen and a board, writing up. How does that look compared to this? So it's really not as complicated as it seems sometimes. And then Monty did an excellent job of just kind of staying calm in the moment and making the best decisions.
It seems day three there was a trend. Well, you football character throughout, but day three in particular was high to elite athletic characteristics for all of your picks this time. Was that a focus on day three specifically?
No, I wouldn't say that was a specific focus. I think it really, again, we it's a scoutism, we say, but you follow the board and you wait and you see, and the guys that were on our board were guys that we were comfortable with as players, as people, and then how, as far as how they measured athletically, I don't really know about that. I just know that we were comfortable with them as players, and then as the people to add to the program as well.
How about you personally, Monty? I mean, this is your first draft, with this franchise, with this position, and you were pretty active and kind of set up this franchise even next year with so many draft picks, especially in the early rounds.
Well, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I mean, this has been an unbelievable 3 days for me personally. Just to be a part of this team and be a part of this group of individuals in that room. I mean, it was exciting, it was intense, and it's can't wait to get the guys out on the field and have it be rewarding. As far as adding the picks, again, I don't think that's something that we necessarily set out to do. I think it was a product of just how the draft went. I mean, I've been a part of drafts where there's been no trades, and then like today, I mean, we had multiple chances to make trades, and today didn't make sense. On Thursday and Friday, they made sense, and so we did them. Today, the chances that we had to move around, it just really didn't make sense for us according to where our board was. So, I think I'm always of the mindset that if the opportunity presents itself, we're going to do it. But today we felt comfortable taking the players where we took them.
You had a chance to kind of just, it was like, I did it, it's over.
As soon as I walk out of this door, I'm going to do that.
What did you guys like about John at center? Kind of what did you see from him at the game?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I think, he played some center back on the UCLA film too, and then seeing it in an all-star game, it's not necessarily better competition, but just the ability to do that, then the pro day, his intellect in meeting with our coaches, meeting with our scouts, clearly mentally he can handle it. He's one of the sharper guys we dealt with all spring. So anytime you get a guy who's just a guard or just a center, you guys see how many injuries you get. Guys get shuffled around. So having a guy who's done it, not just projected to do it, so you can look at some tape and see that's a very valuable skill set. So we feel like John can contribute at two positions.
Where do you guys see yourselves at center right now? Obviously, he can play it, but he's not a guy that's done it for a ton. So do you guys feel like you're still kind of looking there, or can you make it work with what you have?
Yeah, I think, Darren, as it applies to every position, I think we're constantly looking everywhere. I don't think the process of the team building is not done. It's going to continue here because, with 31 other teams adding a bunch of new players, there's going to be another wave of players available here in the next few days. So as it pertains to the center position, I would say this. I would say really not even the center position. I'd say all along the offensive line. All those guys up front are going to play multiple positions. Like they're going to play left tackle, right tackle. They're going to play tackle to guard to tackle, center to guard. it's hard. If you're like Dave just alluded to, if you're a one position player, you better do that one position really well. So all those guys are going to work everywhere. So not just the center position. I'd say it's all across the board.
How much did you talk to Coach Gander this week? Like, what kind of input did he have? What has he said about the haul you've gotten so far?
Constant communication. He sat, I sat, to the right of me was Michael, to the left of me was Dave, and to the right of Michael was JG. And so, it was constant communication. It gets to a point where, I don't know, we're 10 picks out, and you look at the board and hey, I think it's going to be one of these two guys. Okay, JG, what do you think between these two guys? And I learned something today. My colleague here, he's got a superstition that you can't say the player's name up on the board. He thinks that jinxes him if we say if we say Keitrell Clark's name. He thinks that's going to get him to go before we take him. But so I'd say that's a constant communication between all of us. There's times where we have 3 guys that we're considering. There's times that we have 2 guys that we're considering, and there's sometimes that we're holding our breath for 10 picks that one guy that we're looking at is going to stay there. So that's a constant communication between us. And there's times when, hey JG, call this coach and ask him, just make sure where they are at on this guy. So that was constant communication that started Thursday and carried on through today as well.
Did that happen before that you're superstitious with that? That's happened in the past?
Yeah, I've seen that happen like multiple times in a draft room where you start talking about the player and then boom, he comes right off the board. So then it's kind of just like, don't say his name.
In terms of trades, a lot of that with the value of the picks. We all hear all the time about this draft chart or that one. I don't know if there really is one anymore, but is that a big part of what analytics does?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL draft is about value, so there's different ways to measure it. There's those guys have, a trade calculator that puts in their own charts, universal trade charts, Jimmy Johnson, like there's a ton of charts. Most teams do the exact same thing. We look at that value, but it's also just the sense of, are we willing to do this? Are we willing to take the risk of losing said player, and what are we going to gain? Is it 2 guys from this group if we do this? So there's a human instinct to it, too, kind of the scout intuition part of it. But, yeah, we do balance that with an analytics portion of it. Yeah, absolutely.
I know there's a deadline coming up. Have you guys made any decision yet on Isaiah Simmons?
Yeah, we have a few more days on that, Darren, and we'll, we got to work through that. We're going to catch our breath here a little bit, and then we'll have a decision on that next week. But, yeah, we'll get to that.
You mentioned a new process with the 30 visits. Was there anything unique about that, or just a different way of doing things? Or?
Yeah, I think what we tried to do is we tried to at the biggest thing that we were trying to do in the 30 visits, we were trying to get a feel for who the players were as a person, and then what it would be like going to work with them every day. And so we tried to put them through the paces and tried to simulate the best that we could a normal day of work for them. And tried to get them in front of as many people as we could to get different impressions from people in different parts of the football operations. And really at the end, just get everyone's overall feel on if that player would be a good fit for us. And if there was reservations, what exactly were those reservations going to be? And so, I don't think it was anything, there was no secret sauce to it other than, just us trying to get a feel for who they were as people.
Now that we're a couple days removed from drafting Paris, it seems like he's really hit on Kyler. What's that like to see from your standpoint of, the guy that you're going to entrust a lot of Kyler's safety with in the next few years hitting on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's unique what we're going to ask this group of 9 players that we just hit. I mean, we're picking them up out of some place they've been for 3, 4, 5 years, and now we're going to drop them into a new place to live and a new team and learn a new way of doing things. So anytime those veteran players can reach out and help that transition and help a player, hey, this is what it's going to be like and this is what you got to do or things you should avoid, I think that's always beneficial. So the fact that, not only Kyler, but there was multiple players of ours that were around and got to meet Paris and I know I've had our players reach out to me asking for phone numbers of the guys that we drafted. I think that's outstanding. Just the more that we can get our team and build some cohesion, I think that's awesome.
Were there any surprises with where you got some of the guys today, or I guess over the whole draft?
Surprises. I mean, I think really there's 31 other teams, and the boards look 31 different ways, I'm sure. So, you know, I don't know really if surprise is the right word. I think it's really more just to be prepared. And sure, there's guys that we would see and that we'd like to add, but in reality, you can't get them all. You're not going to be able to get them all. And so it's just having a plan, being prepared, and you know, when that opportunity comes, when the clock hits us, that just being ready to make a move.
What's your timeline now in implementing your process completely? Is it something you do immediately? Do you give guys a little bit of break? What's that going to be?
Yeah, so to tell you the truth, our preparation on the 2024 draft has already begun. Our scouts have already turned their attention to that, and we will continue to push through that. I would say some of our other processes that we're going to do will the way that we talk about players, the way that we write about players, the scale that we use to grade players. I think that's going to be all rolled out here in the next month and a half. And then there's some things that we do that you just really can't. You can plan for them, but until you actually go through them, it's hard. You can tell somebody till you're blue in the face, but until they do it, you know. So whether it pertains to preseason scouting or advanced scouting once the season hits, and then our December process for college meeting, I think all of that we can plan for it, but until we actually do it, it's going to take a cycle before everybody kind of feels the process.
Maybe the most important question is, whose dog was that?
That was Michael's dog. That was Michael's dog up there, and it was great when everybody would get excited, or when we would clap at the pick, she would get excited and start barking. And so I don't know if she liked the pick or didn't like the pick. You know, it's hard to say, but that was a good addition for Saturday of the draft. So that was only today. Yeah, it was a good addition. So.
Was there any particular player, like we see on TV just some of the reaction in the draft room? Was there any player for whom the reaction there was a little more fired up than others?
I would say Keitrell Clark was having one hell of a party today. Yeah, I think he was excited. I mean, there was some guys got real emotional. It was really cool to hear. Really cool to hear. Had to be just a lifelong dream for these guys to be with their family and their friends and to get our phone call, but then, you know, I can only imagine what it feels like for them to be sitting at home on their couch and to see their name come across. I mean, that's got to be a really cool experience. And so just for them to share that moment with their family and friends, that's really cool. So.
And how about for you to be the one delivering that news?
Yeah. That's not something I take lightly, and you know, it's cool for me to be able to share that with them, and you know, for our first draft class as a group, I think this group will always kind of hold a special place for me, certainly, and you know, it was some cool moments. I was happy to be a part of them.
Let's follow on that real quick. Some of the phone calls the Cardinals put out, it caught you. It sounded like a few times saying, "Hey guys, make sure you thank the people around you." And you said that why was that important for you to point out to those guys and make sure to thank everyone that helped them get to this point?
Yeah, you know, and I can't take credit for that. I think that's something that I learned from Coach Vrabel. That's something Coach Vrabel did, and I took from him, and I thought it was a really cool way of him to you know, recognize the importance of the situation. And you know, all of us have people in our lives that have helped us get to where we are, and I think it's you know, everybody that we talk to was with family or with friends, and just the importance of recognizing the opportunity and recognizing the moment, just making sure that guys call their attention to that. And you know, I again thank Coach Vrabel for that, showing me that, and I thought that was really cool and something I liked that I was able to bring here.
Could either one of you talk about Clayton Tune a little more and what you see for him coming in here with a crowded room?
Well, I mean, you know, I think what I've said a couple times this week is we're always going to look to add competition to the roster. Okay, so you know, it doesn't matter what position that's at. We're going to constantly look to add competition. And you know, Clayton was a highly productive player at the University of Houston. He's got good size. He's got good speed. He throws the ball well. You know, so we'll see how it goes. Like, it's a crowded room, but you know, I think there's with, you know, Kyler's working back from his injury. You know, so we'll see how it goes. I think competition will bring out the best in everybody, and we'll see where that ends up.
Monty, thank you. Dave?
Guys, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Yeah, nice job, guys. Yeah, great. Awesome, guys. Thanks for your patience this weekend. Yep. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, man. Good seeing you, buddy.
Crowder's divorced ex-wife go on to a show on the Daily Wire. That's just so bizarre. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. No chance Yasher is working with the Daily Wire. Come on. The thing is, he doesn't have to be working the Daily Wire, right? They could just say, like, let's leak this to, like, leftist media. This is starting to get a little bit more on the conspiratorial side. But, like, if somebody really wanted me, I think I've actually had people do this to me before. Let me see if I can think of an example where a conservative has come to me with stuff to leak about another conservative. I'm trying to remember who this happened. I had a lot of people. I had some surprisingly big names message me after my Milo Yiannopoulos debate, and I've had multiple smaller conservative people, like I'll say like Laura Loomer DM'd me and congratulated me on the Milo debate. She wasn't giving me dirt or anything yet, but like Laura, so that debate got up to a lot of people. I did have people messaging me to try to like leak dirt on Milo, and that's not Laura Loomer, but other people. But that would be an example of like, it's probably other conservatives that want to see Milo fall that would leak dirt to me, a lefty, knowing that I'd want to report on it, right? That's not like that. That's not that insane. Oh, I had conservatives send me information about Paul Joseph Watson. That N-word clip, the one that I tweeted first, but I gave it a bad title, and then it broke later in some other thing. That N-word audio clip was originally, well, I don't know if I'll say it was originally leaked to me, but I'm pretty sure it was leaked to me before that reporter that wrote the story on it by a conservative person that wanted, because they knew that I would like tweet it out and report on it. It wasn't Lauren. It was actually a lady that emailed me, but yeah. So yeah, it's yeah. He's being 100% contrarian because everyone is on the hate train for Crowder, so his videos on topic will top the algorithm on YouTube. It's deleted. Oh, I should just ban you. I don't know how to ban you. If you think I'm contrarian, you point out the flaw in my logic, you retarded f. Well, now you can't because now you're banned, so. This will bolster Crowder's platform. No, this is gonna be pretty rough for. This is gonna be pretty rough for Crowder. Just say 3-minute clips looks bad, but we need more context. You have to say it looks bad over and over. Oh, sure. I mean, it does look bad. I've said that it looks bad. Yeah. Okay, and then what do we got here? One final.
Topic, Steven Crowder. If you aren't aware, Steven Crowder's a right-wing commentator, very popular right now. I think he's shifted to Rumble. Not much on YouTube as much. And he's been going through a divorce. Now, why should you care? Honestly, you probably shouldn't. But Steven Crowder, he's been involved in a few different situations recently. Now, the divorce comes after his wife alleges that he was emotionally abusive in the relationship itself. There's a Ring video as well as an article that's came out from a Substack by Yashar. And there's also
kept it private, but people in positions of power knew that this was happening, with him alluding to extortion and threats about exposing that information, then playing a clip of Candace Owens speaking about him. There, she seems to question his Christianity, says that he's going through a lot, says we should pray for him. And then you had Owens uploading a video titled "Steven Crowder accused me of extortion," saying he always paints himself as the victim, saying no one's threatened him or made demands behind closed doors, saying Crowder sent her a flirty Instagram DM on midterm election night that she didn't respond to, saying
really?
that he began his attacks on the Daily Wire, and concluding that the divorce is why he's spiraling and acting erratic. She then sends Crowder a cease and desist, demanding a full retraction, and then invites Crowder's wife on her show. So with all of that, I gotta say, I don't care about that part. Let him fight it out.
That's messy. When your political opponent is basically saying like, yo, wife, come throw some dirt on Crowder.
Crazy,
dude.
But for me, what was the most interesting was the insight that it gave on what he and people like him think should be legal or not, with Crowder very much seemingly not a fan of the law.
My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period. And she wanted something else for her life. That's not my choice. She simply wanted out, and the law says that that's how it works. It's no one's fault but my own in that I picked wrong.
So, That's how he feels about it. He describes it. He claims that Candace Owens is extorting him, hasn't provided any proof. Kind of a crazy allegation, but whatever. So let's play the video of how Steven Crowder treats his wife.
That's foul. That's gonna be super. I know you hate the dude, but goddamn.
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary in abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
Oh shit! I actually hold on. Am I hearing this right? Oh god, you guys are gonna think I'm dick sucking Crowder so much.
You were not taking boundary.
Damn.
Because I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary in abusive and cruel.
Oh man, I don't like talking about this because you guys are such fucking haters. This line when he says I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel, it does sound like they either were in therapy or they'd made an earlier agreement that in disagreements she's not allowed to call him abusive or cruel, that those are like words that are going to trigger him or set him off. That's what it sounds like when he says, I missed that the first time.
Sorry, honey, it is the law. If you want to divorce me, you have to fight me in trial by combat. I'll make the rules.
I thought that he was making a reference to like, you're being abusive and cruel, but it sounds like he's saying that I drew the line, and that's probably why he gets so triggered later on when she says it and he says, watch it. That actually perfectly fits.
I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary in abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
You already said it was a possibility. Agree when Jace. Yeah, no, I said it was a possibility, but I didn't hear this line before. I didn't contextualize it that way. Like where I drew the boundary, I didn't hear that.
I have steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not a reasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes, how do you man? How do you man? You see love respect.
Mind you, this lady is pregnant. Like, not little pregnant. That belly bigger than a motherfucker.
8 months pregnant.
And you're not gonna let her take the car? You wanna let her take the Uber?
Because apparently they only have one car.
And?
Yeah, that's wild, like saying the Uber thing.
And?
It's just like...
What? No. What's your point?
I don't understand why they wouldn't have multiple cars. That's weird.
Yeah, that's really strange. Now, like I said, it could be the case that there's a car in the shop, or it could also be the case that Crowder intentionally only has one car, so she's like restricted to the home. But again, I don't know. I don't know the situation, you know?
I don't care about that.
Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe the car's being repaired, or maybe the car's broken, or maybe they sold it. It's just
you don't have to have to.
Oh, okay, yeah, Abba's bringing it up. Oh, Abba glazing on that Destiny dick. I know you're stealing my takes, motherfucker.
It doesn't matter
because it's during the quarantine. So basically, he's saying like, if you take it, then I can't leave, and she's not specifying when she's gonna come back. I'm trying to be. Listen, everybody's shitting on him. I'm just trying to
Then your unpregnant ass take the Uber then. Okay?
True.
If she's good enough to take an Uber because she's pregnant, your unpregnant, manly fucking right-wing ass.
Well, Brett, why'd you say right-wing?
Because usually they're more about, gender roles and stuff like that. I'm the man.
That is true. Why couldn't Crowder just Uber?
And I'm the one that's strong. So if you're the man, you're the one that's strong, and she's the one she's gonna run the errands. You're gonna take your manly hands with the Uber.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. The fuck you mean?
Okay.
Pregnant?
Okay.
You a special kind of soft.
How do we manage No, you're not taking the car.
Steven,
you're not taking the car.
Steven,
you are not.
Then I will ask them to take the food out. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's no threat, Steven.
Give it an Uber.
Okay, dude, I've seen so many abusive relationships, okay? I know everybody thinks, oh, Destiny must have abused people like this. No, I haven't had this, but I've seen a lot of them. This line to me, okay, now again, keep in mind, everything I say is speculation, okay? So I could be wrong, okay? Oh, I want to rewatch this whole video now. Now I'm seeing things that I wasn't noticing before, okay?
You're not taking the car.
Yeah, what is that thread of who should I ask? Let me tell you, NNN, okay? Mr. Virgin Relationship Guy, don't worry, I'll help you sort this one out, okay? I know you are lost here, okay? Let me help you, all right? I know it's not 1,000 days of squatting, okay? It could be the case when he responds that way, okay? Now, I don't know, but it could be the case when he responds that way that she's saying something along the lines of like, oh, you're not gonna let me take the car? Well, I'm gonna call a friend and I'm gonna tell her that you're not letting me leave the house. that if she's done that in the past, that could be the threat, right? That like, oh, I can't take the car? I'll call Sam and I'll have her pick me up again and tell her that you won't let me go anywhere, right? Now that I don't know, but it could be the case. No, I'm agreeing there's a threat. I didn't mean Ella Hug to be a threat. Curious. Oh, sorry. Get yourself. I thought you were trolling me.
You are not.
Then I will ask them to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not a threat, Steven.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
I guess.
And that's why he's telling her to take an Uber instead, because it sounds like she's like going to contact a friend that he's like that she's complained about him to before. Maybe, right? Keep in mind, a lot of this is like we're just reading into the ethers. We don't have more information, but it could also be the case that he's just really controlling. But I'm trying to think of why would he say, is that a threat though? I'm trying to think of that, but.
I want to pick
Destiny, you're making huge jumps when you preach about waiting till info comes out on other subjects. What I'm telling you is that I'm speculating. I'm being open about it. I'm honest. I am speculating. I don't know, okay? But you guys have all jumped 100% on board with the wife who has selectively released this 3.5-minute video with the worst part apparently cut out at the end, and your brain is completely shut off going, oh, 100% she must be right, and this is like all of these, right? I'm just writing what could be the context of these statements, okay?
Pick me up. Getting an Uber. I just let somebody go pick her up. She made a compromise. So I don't even understand what's going on right now. But again, this is the weird thing. We're seeing a conversation 3 minutes long in the middle of something. I don't
know what the problem is. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, that's true. Like, what is happening here? Like, what is this stuff about the dog and the medication? And why does she need the car? How long is she taking for? Why does he need the car? What's like? Yeah, we have no idea what's happening. What this fight is even over right now.
Like, off on Steven Crowder because so many people who are different, who are not connected to him or not connected to each other, have alleged that he's very controlling. He has a bad temper. He's very like, and you know, the stuff that he handled with the Daily Wire was really shady in my opinion. So this is like falling in line with what a lot of people say about him. Yep. I would give him a normal person the benefit of the doubt because he's got such a bad rep online. This should look kind of crazy.
Even with a bad rep, being so fucking adamant about the fucking car, and you're letting her take a Uber, it's like, who raised you?
Yeah, but you don't know the world of context that exists in a long marriage like this.
I understand what you're saying.
Maybe she's not been helpful at all throughout the whole marriage.
Even if she is, she's taking an Uber to go to do the groceries. That's her action. If she hasn't been helpful, and now she's taking the car.
It sounds like she's gonna leave, and she's not specifying when she's coming back, which might be the issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm here. Like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to go anywhere. Like, if she's going for the groceries, she's gonna be gone for what, like an hour, bro? Like, are you so trapped in the house you can't leave for an hour? Like, is she leaving all day? That's why it doesn't. It's so weird. Like, what is the context of this? That's why I want more context for this conversation. Like.
At hand here.
I can understand.
So again, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. But to me, what indicts him is the prior.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven.
Like, I can't go. Listen to me.
Steven.
You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of it.
Why can't he call his friends? Like, what does that mean? Is everything broken at the house? Like, Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me. Now, that could just be him being abusive or exploitative, right? He might be like, anytime you leave, you're over, so I need to keep you boxed in, right? That could be an abuser tactic. It's truly, it could be. He could be, wait. Go back to where he says groceries. Oh, I'm just saying, like, what is this, him saying, like, I can't call my friends?
Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym.
I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. Okay, that's fine. You have to drive there. I can't call my friends?
I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're gonna take the car and leave me here.
So like, what is happening? Because right now it looks like he's just big chilling. He's on his back porch with a dog. I think he's got his socks on, and he's like smoking a cigar or something. What does he need to do? I'm so confused. Like, I wish I had the context for all this. He's still recovering from his heart surgery stuff? Oh, maybe.
Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back.
Like, why does she say that? Like her response there, I'll be back when I'm back. What does that mean? Like, everything is so confusing. What do you mean, I'll be back when I'm back? Wait, is it gonna take like an hour or two? Or are you gonna be gone for like 8 hours? Or, everything is so confusing here.
It doesn't work either. Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back, I'm back?
Steven.
And making it work. Can you do that? The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impact.
I will say
the only way out of what? Out of what? Out of having one car?
it is a really bad idea to be highly stressing your wife while she's this pregnant. It's bad for the baby and it's bad for your wife.
Take an Uber.
It doesn't seem like this is about the car.
No, it's not.
It's not about the car. Clearly not.
It's either about some other shit or control. That's what it is. That's what I see.
Plenty of studies back that up. Like stress actually makes adverse pregnancy outcomes by disrupting blood flow, high blood pressure, having a low birth weight infant, preterm birth. And so you just have to be mindful.
I also, dude, I'm such a Crowder dick suck right now. I could understand Steven Crowder not wanting to take Ubers, right? Like, maybe he's had, because he's kind of famous, maybe. That's a little bit of a stretch. Like, is somebody gonna beat him up in an Uber? Doesn't he conceal carry everywhere? Doesn't he have his stupid fucking straps? Couldn't he fucking have his gun everywhere? But like, maybe, I don't know.
When someone is that pregnant, it's not a good idea to be in these kinds of situations continuously. And from what she described, their marriage has been tenuous like this for a long time.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline.
Yeah.
There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
Hillary,
Steven?
you give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it.
And this is the watch it. I drew the boundary at abuse and at abuse and something else. And now she's saying your abuse is sick, and this is when you get straight. Watch it, right?
Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you.
So this could be, from her point of view, saying I love you here could be a manipulator tactic to where you're saying like, oh, well, I'm gonna trigger you and I'm gonna tell you I love you. Or it could be a genuine de-escalation tactic. Like, hey, listen, we're fighting, but I still love you. Like, I don't hate you, okay? I love you. I'm sorry we're fighting, right? It could be either, but we don't know. We have no idea, right? We don't have the context. It could, like, almost everything being said here could mean two completely different things. Him saying I don't love you here is pretty shitty. There are some things you should never say, like, in a fight. Saying, like, I don't love you. You probably should never say that in a fight. There's not gonna be an excuse to that. It's just a really shitty thing to say.
And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no, but I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves.
So, like,
no,
you see,
but I love you more than
again,
life itself.
we don't have context for the relationship, but like, let's say that she does that all the time. That could be, of course, everything she says and does is wrong. I'm literally giving you, I'm perma-banning you. You're never coming back. Hold on, actually, I'm gonna look up alts for you, and I'm banning every single alt. I'm literally giving you both sides. Hold on, wait, before I perma-ban you, Nix, are you deaf? Can you not hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Yeah, I'm not banning you. I wanted to, though.
That's not fair. It's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right, red impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife, no, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you.
Hillary, come on now. A wife, no, not as a wife. I didn't say as a
hold on, bros. It's something else. I will be the only one correct here. I will shower me in your hatred. I should have watched this video more closely when it first came out. I'm not even noticing. There's like 8-second cuts here too. What's going on here? Look at the timestamp down here. 12:38:03.
Worthy of a wife, no.
We just lost 8 seconds of footage here. Why? How many cuts are in this video? I've never actually even paid attention to that before. We just lost 8 seconds. Why does he say she's unworthy? Like, what if he, for instance, now he could have said like some personal, disgusting things though. You're unworthy because you're a slut whore. And they wanted to cut that because it's unnecessary. Now, I don't know why you wouldn't bleep it. Wait, was that Abba's editing? Wait, hold on. I need to rewatch the original. Hold on. Give me the original. Let's watch this. I'm so curious now. Okay. Is there a better site that hosts video than this dog shit fucking laggy piece of shit sub shit?
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it.
Picture. Oh, thank you, God, Jesus. Okay. It's a ring cam, Destiny. It cuts after a certain time and will start again in motion. I don't believe you. No shot that it was cutting here and this fucking guy. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. That it was cutting at these exact moments and then re-coming back and no way. Okay.
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There is no groceries. I'd be happy.
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first?
So like here, that was a massive cut. 12:36:05. How much time did we just cut out?
It's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about
40 seconds. We just lost 40 seconds. What was going on here?
you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man? How do you man? And receive love like that? Respect. No. How do you man? No, you're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You're not taking the car.
Stephen,
you are not.
then I will ask someone to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not a threat, Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen,
I have to start watching chat. I'm looking for.
Feeling some constraints?
Stephen.
Like, I can't
Stephen.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't.
Oh, hold on. When he says like I can't go to the gym, I can't go to my parents. Is this because of COVID maybe? Is it all closed down and his parents are like sick maybe? Cuz this footage was this from 2020 or 2021? Oh, I see it. It's right here. I'm sorry. When June of 2021? Were we in like COVID times, lockdown shit and everything? The video is 3 minutes and 28 seconds long, but it starts at 34:58 and it ends at 39:08, which means 4 minutes and 10 seconds was cut out. I'm sorry, there's not 4 minutes cut, there's 40 seconds cut, my bad.
Be home. You're gonna take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Do
you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going to be back when I'm back?
Stephen.
The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline and respect.
Stephen.
There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Stephen.
Hillary, you give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Stephen, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Stephen, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it, you go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife.
That was the 8-second cut we saw in Abba's video.
Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
Like, and this is something we need to kind of talk about. Why does she not want to walk the dog? Like, what's going on with the dog too? That's something I'm so curious about. Poor doggy.
I'm gonna just
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs? No, you take Betty.
It's not about the dogs.
Provide you a boundary.
Damn. I think she's overwhelmed, right? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Damn, this is all so sus. This is some sussy baka shit.
Not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to you. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Put on some.
Okay, so it sounds like he's demanding from his 8-month pregnant wife to do some labor to prove that she's committed because he feels like she just says stuff and doesn't do it with actions. Apparently she didn't want to walk the dogs because apparently to some degree it could be poisonous towards the child, and he really wanted her to. So those are some of the many problems that they have together.
Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just
walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs? No, you take Betty.
She won't put on the gloves, so why won't he help the dog with medicine? Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That's so weird, right? Like, it's just giving dogs medicine. Why can't you do it?
I don't know how true this last statement is, because I didn't hear it. Him saying, I will fuck you up, that's obviously something you should never say to your partner. I don't think there's any context that makes that acceptable. But again, you don't hear it on camera, so I can't say too much. I will read a little bit, a couple excerpts from the article itself. They say that she's been spending years hiding her husband's mental and emotional abuse from her family, and that he lied about the circumstances around their divorce, and that he wasn't present for the birth of their children. Nobody's saying that anyone was beaten in this marriage or that there was infidelity. And in audio files and text messages that Yashar received, Steven Crowder admits to some of his faults, which include a volcanic temper, repeatedly and at times regretfully. Apparently, this is one thing that I thought was really interesting. Crowder, in the video you guys saw earlier, complains about the no-fault divorce things. In June 2021, Steven left their home to pursue elective surgery. Hillary urged him to get help he needed to address his behavior with the hope that their marriage could be saved and that they could peacefully live together as a family. Instead, Steven refused to do so and chose to not be with his wife during the birth of their twin children. Hillary was unaware that Steven Crowder had hired a divorce attorney and asked his assistant to cut Hillary off financially. There is significant documentation substantiating these facts.
And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted.
Him going out talking about she wants a divorce, but he's been talking to a divorce lawyer, and then he's been cutting her off financially. Those kind of circumstances make things a little bit sus.
Well, but then also, again, we don't know anything, right? It could be the case that she was threatening to divorce him, so then he got a lawyer first. Just because somebody got a lawyer first doesn't mean we don't know where the proceedings start. We have no idea. It could be that he was planning to truly snake the fuck out of her and he hated his kids and blah, blah, blah. That could be the case, but it could also be that they've been talking about divorce and she threatened it and he's like, okay, whatever. And then he hires a lawyer in the background to start protecting his assets. Possibly, right?
Weird. Yes, especially when you say something different publicly. Like
what you claim? You claim like, yeah, she wanted this, she wanted this because I got money. But you went when she didn't even know about a divorce.
Yeah,
you felt it.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's not something that we should care about because that's from the personal point. What's happening with his wife actually changes nothing in my perception of that guy.
Yeah, it just more so confirms a lot what we already know.
Like a Don King perm, we already knew. You know what I mean? So I'm not big, especially when you don't expose your wife like that. You don't put your wife out there like that. You know what I mean? You don't put so I'm not, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to do that. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you? But then again, it really doesn't change much.
No.
So
I would say this confirms a lot of what I already suspected about him from everything I've heard from everyone else, including people I know personally who've worked for him.
Yep.
I'll say that also, is interesting to hear someone complain about the fact that one party can choose to make a divorce
Only one
happen.
party can divorce.
I understand people don't want divorces to be taken lightly, but the idea that you would need the consent of the other person in order to set up a divorce, no. Especially not seeing that kind of conversation and what I saw unfold. If that is more of the norm and that dynamic that was presented in the video is true for the entirety of the marriage or most of it, then I would want a scenario where the person who's having to suffer that at 8 months pregnant can file for a divorce if need be. I do think, you know, there should be some measure of couples counseling or things like that that people have to go through for an extended period before that's possible. But it shouldn't be mandatory because not everyone's circumstances are the same. And the last thing I would want is for someone to be stuck in a marriage with somebody who beats them, who treats them terribly every single day or whatever the fuck it is. Like, I don't know, it's just weird hearing you say that, especially after finding out that this man was talking to a divorce lawyer. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's what makes it seem like he's just doing a bunch of PR bullshit online for his right-wing grift, is because he's just out here pandering like, oh my God, I'm such a good Christian. I don't even believe in divorcing my wife, you know, in this non-Christ-like manner is able to divorce me without the... It's like, man, shut the fuck up. If you were really talking to the divorce lawyer, man, off yourself. Get the fuck up out of here. That is the most disingenuous PR stunt to control a narrative publicly.
Yeah, but again, we don't know, right?
And that's what Steven does a lot. You saw it when he recorded the phone call with his then friend, or so-called friend, where he recorded the call and then put that shit out to the public to like frame him a certain type of way after editing out many parts. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the comments, there's a bunch of right wingers that are like, he's weird.
Yeah, and
he's
also
weirdo.
Apparently likes cross-dressing, all this other stuff. I don't really care. But him just accusing people of extorting him, like, show the proof. Show the proof. You guys love facts and evidence.
Show the facts and evidence.
Yeah. But as far as what I saw in that video, yeah, that shit don't look good. But I'll reserve judgment because there may be more context that could make me change my mind. But in a vacuum, that shit don't look nice. And with the context of who this man is, that shit don't look nice.
True.
And so that's probably my overall take.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nah.
Anything else on the floor?
You're not gonna send your wife pregnant to get an Uber?
I got multiple cars.
And you don't even make Crowder money.
I don't make Crowder money.
How this man got one car?
I don't make Crowder
There's
money.
no reason. You should have 3 of his.
That is really weird. The one car thing is really weird.
Environmental. I'm
3.
Bruv, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt.
3.
But in the summer, I got a way out. It doesn't matter.
3.
I am not touching. I remember the number that not whatever.
What a wild ride.
What kind of man are you looking for, honey?
What a wild ride this is gonna be. Damn, when Crowder starts leaking shit. It's gonna be wild. Crowder made a statement on his Twitter. Yeah, I saw. He said he's gonna start basically leaking shit. So we're gonna see. That's why I said the shit is gonna get wild as f. Where do we leave off with the Kai Cenat rape vid? Well, he released that video, but the girl was telling him to release the audio. Now he's saying he doesn't want to release the audio, which is really weird. Now that kind of makes him look even worse than before he'd released the video. The video made him look maybe a little bit better, although you're releasing revenge porn, because it was like, oh, the girl doesn't seem like she's sleeping, maybe she's cognizant. But now when she's saying, well, why don't you release the audio, motherfucker? And he's like, not releasing the audio. Now I think it all just makes him look worse, because now he basically revenge porn somebody. It doesn't even really exonerate him if he hid the audio for kind of a weird reason. Because it was kind of weird too. His reason is like, well, I don't want people to be jerking off to this. Like, bro, we don't need audio to jerk off to a fucking video of you fucking somebody. Well, that's the most retarded reason in the world. And now she's saying release the audio and he won't do it. Now it kind of makes you... Now it kind of makes you wonder. Now it makes it maybe even look worse. So, yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
Dave Landau is spilling all the tea in what I, at least, would call an explosive tell-all interview with Michael Malice. I mean, he is not pulling any punches and has revealed at least his own reasons for why he parted ways with Steven Crowder and is no longer appearing as a co-host on Louder with Crowder. Now, if you're not familiar with Dave Landau, he's a comedian. He was previously on Anthony Camilla's show, and like I mentioned, was on Louder with Crowder as well. But a while ago, he stopped appearing in episodes. And there was never really any statement given as to why, so it left a lot of fans wondering, hey, where's Dave? Where'd Dave go? Is he just on a break? Is he gonna be back? Or is he just done with the show entirely. Well, after Crowder's show went on break, because of the whole DW situation, which we will be addressing more, and the show relaunched, Loud with Crowder relaunched on Rumble, and Dave still was not there, it appeared like, yeah, he was totally done, and it didn't seem like any official reason would ever be given, which, you know, does happen, and that's kind of fine. I mean, outside of the entertainment industry, people change jobs all the time, and it's not necessarily always the case that something salacious or some drama happened. However, if we are to at least believe Dave's side of things, drama was definitely at play here. I do want to say thank you to today's sponsor, Patriot Gold. According to a lot of people, the 2023 financial crisis has begun. According to Bloomberg, for example, the missing...
Bro, I feel like I've heard we're gonna enter a recession or some sort of financial crisis for like 2 years. Where is it, fam-a-lambs?
If you haven't seen Dave's interview with Michael, I recommend you check it out yourself just so you get first-hand knowledge of what exactly he said. But among the things he alleged Crowder did while they were working together was, number one, have a light installed in the studio to stop Dave from talking over Crowder too much.
It became a little weird because a light was put in where it was his rant button. It was basically a Dave don't talk button.
So it's like he had a rant button. He's got an actual epic Vosh rant button. Like, I'm doing a rant right now. I'm doing an epic fucking Vosh rant right now. Please do not interrupt me. I need one of these.
Camera, but in your eyesight.
Yes, and
would he be the one pressing the button, or was there a producer pressing the button?
He would press it.
So, like Mr. Burns, like he had a button under his desk or the table, and when it's Steven's turn to talk and Dave needs to shut the F up, he presses this button.
Yes.
And Dave also mentions a specific event where there was some tension over who a guest co-host might be that ended in Crowder literally yelling at him over the phone.
So I just texted Steven and said, hey, I just talked to the showrunner. I just want to make sure it's still cool that Matt comes in. And he texted me something back along the lines of, what's done is done. I said, what does that mean? It's your show, which is ironic. That's what he said. And my phone rings, and, you know, I don't want to go...
Okay, I might be crazy. I can be a petty motherfucker. And I guess I deal with a lot of kids in my industry. A lot of this shit talking feels like children, though. Like, if you're gonna come out here and blow your employer up, I'm thinking like, so I work for Steven Crowder. This motherfucker said you work Friday and Saturday for free. I didn't get paid for 20% of my time there, right? Or like, after we'd finish shows, Crowder was in a drunken stupor and would sometimes like hurl racial epithets at us. Okay. Or like I signed a contract saying I get paid this much, and instead he said at the end of the term, oh, if you don't like it, sue me, right? That's what I'm thinking of. But instead, it's like these like leaks are like, well, he's got a button and when he doesn't want us to talk, he pushes a button and it's really bad. And then one time when we had a guest on his show, he said, what's done is done. It's like, who the fuck cares? Like, it's such weak bullshit. Like, it's so cringe. Like, you all sound like little babies. Like, yeah, people do weird shit on their shows sometimes, but like, this isn't like a big expose tell-all. I don't know.
Greatly into the conversation between us, but it was, he's like, do you still want to be on Loud with Crowder? And I said, not at the moment. And he starts going off on me, and now there's a ton of people in my apartment who can hear it.
Wait, he's literally raising his voice?
He's screaming at me.
Okay, so literally raising his voice, not just being stern, like to the point.
So like, raising his voice? He's literally raising his voice at me. Like, I mean, like, okay. Literally, he's not even being stern. He's actually raising his voice.
Point where people, it's audible.
It's audible?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it's started stern, but then it got into telling me that he owns me. And
in those words?
Yes.
And as that Timcast article mentions, there was also this proposed very strict 5-minute tardy rule where Dave could not be more than 5 minutes late to when he was supposed to show up, lest he not be paid at all or even allowed in the office. And to be clear, there's a difference between a call time and an air time when you're in something like a podcast. A call time is when you're supposed to show up at the studio or on the set to, get ready and just ensure that you're there with plenty of time before you need to go on. That's very different than the actual time that the podcast will be starting. So to be clear, in this contract, or at least this proposed clause, they were saying that Dave could not be more than 5 minutes late from when they tell him to get there, even if that left him with plenty of time to actually be on the show.
Okay, this is another thing. I think Lauren Chen has worked in real media before, because she's on The Blaze. Okay, bro, I know this from band and shit, okay? Call time is when you're supposed to fucking be there, okay? If we've got a show at 5 and call is at 4:30, your ass better be there at 4:30. I don't want you to waltz in at 4:50 saying, oh no, I'll be ready in time, don't worry. No, fuck you. I want to know at 4:30, everybody's there that's supposed to be there, and then we're gonna go through either a rehearsal, a setup, we're gonna get ready. I don't want people running in at 4:52 with a Starbucks coffee and like, oh shit, hey guys, what are we doing? Like, let me go set up, we'll be good in like 8 minutes, like we're fine. Like, bro, like, yeah, if call time is 4:30, then you are there at 4:30. Well, for a band, it's you're in your seat with your instrument out at 4:30, right? But like, yeah, the idea like, oh, well, as long as you're there in time to start, bullshit. That's not what call time means, motherfucker. It's not a suggested show up time. It's not like it'd be nice if we be your time. It's I need you here at this time so that like the production and everybody can be set up ready to go. Not air time. You're not there by air time. You're there by call time. I don't know. It's really strange because she was on the Blaze for a while, I thought, with Glenn Beck. Maybe they didn't do any live shows, but like, damn, bro, what is this? That's such a weird thing for her to say. Like,
And I know a lot of people might say, well, not wanting someone to be late for work, that's not exactly a crazy thing. But
yep.
First off, 5 minutes is not a lot of leeway. Like, I think you're pretty punctual if you're only 5 minutes late, at least.
She's from California. She's from California. I don't care what her Wikipedia says. I do not care what her Wikipedia says. She was born and raised in Los Angeles. To say some wild shit like that, she must be. She absolutely must be. That's the most Canadian born? Maybe is there like a California in Canada? That is the most Californian shit I've ever heard in my entire life. If you're only 5 minutes late, you're basically like the most on-time person. This is such a wild video to me, bro. What the fuck am I listening to?
For work, that's not exactly a crazy thing, but first off, 5 minutes is not a lot of leeway. Like, I think you're pretty punctual if you're only 5 minutes late, at least in my opinion. And the second thing, and I think why this was especially strange, at least to Dave, is that according to Dave, Crowder's team would often change the time that he was supposed to be at the studio, which of course made it hard to be punctual when, you have other work to do for the show, and they're changing the time you're supposed to be there, 7 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever it may be. And I think if you want someone...
Wait, how would it change? Are you doing show prep like I don't know. I feel like Destiny, nobody talking about Crowder right now is doing so in good faith. They all see an opportunity to get into good graces with the many enemies he's made in the right-wing media. They're all looking at the surface material and going, how can I spend this the worst way possible? That is exactly what's happening. When Crowder, also, by the way, Crowder for trying to go at the Daily Wire because he did it in a stupid way. And he did it apparently with way too many skeletons in his closet. So Crowder himself here, and now his divorce is being dragged out to make fun of him. Nobody gives a about his wife. Nobody gives a about his family, least of all conservatives, okay? All of this shit is being wheeled out now, and now you've got all of these like political slugs / leeches coming up like, oh yeah, did you guys know that Steven Crowder drank sparkling water? And it's like, it's trying to like hop out on like every cringe thing they possibly can. This is so, and it's so funny too, because this is a conservative, right? These are conservatives that we hear all the time. What do they say? Pick yourself by your bootstraps. Show up to work on time. Have some personal responsibility. Take some goddamn accountability on your life. Do what you can to better your situation. That's the conservative mindset constantly. Don't make excuses. Don't be on food stamps, you fat fuck. Starve. Don't go to get unemployment insurance. Get a job, you lazy fuck. And now it's like, well, if you're only 5 minutes late to work, is it even really that big of a deal? Like, if you miss call time, as long as you're there, like, by air time, it should be okay. And, like, what if your boss is changing your schedule around by a few hours all the time? You might not be able to prepare, right? Like, you sound like the biggest pussy in the fucking world. You have a dream job. You're working in online content creation for political media. You can show up to work on time. What the fuck? I don't know. That's just wild to me. It's just so funny.
Want to be on time, ensure they're on time, it's always a good idea to give them as much heads up as possible. But in any case, the general vibe I got from Dave's account of the time that he was on the show, it seems like Crowder has control issues, to say the least. Specifically, Dave mentioned things like Crowder wanting him to be in studio or like on call, on location, even when Dave had nothing to do at the studio, wasn't filming, wasn't even part of rehearsals. Crowder still wanted him to be physically there for reasons that escape my understanding, but to which Dave attributes to just, yeah, literally wanting control over him.
What?
Hello?
Hello, what do you want? I'm streaming.
Oh, okay. Maybe another time then.
Okay, bye.
Hi, stream. Okay.
Why you just randomly call me? What do you think is gonna happen? I'm a streamer. I'm always streaming, okay? I'm a workaholic. I don't know why Lav would just call me in the middle of my stream.
He wanted me to be there on more Fridays, and that started being a point of tension because I started making money on the road, and I did say I would be there on more Fridays, but every time I would show up, he wouldn't show up.
Hello, what's up? How are you doing today?
About Steven not wanting him to leave Dallas to go on tour, even if it didn't necessarily affect him being on the show. Like, they would have stipulations, or they wanted to have stipulations of how many weekends Dave could be in town versus out of town, even though Dave didn't work weekends.
Can't be gone any more than every third weekend.
No, wait, so let's break this down also. Steven has started touring as a comedian.
Yes.
Steven is no dummy. Steven is very well aware that you and every comic, weekends are when you tour, you hit the road, you make the money. So he is very clearly taking that secondary or even primary, possibly at this point, source of income from you because...
Okay, what were they doing in contract negotiations? If some motherfucker is offering you a contract saying you can't be away for any fucking weekend, why did you sign it? He just seems like a shit boss? No, again... Oh, you guys just, I don't know how to make you guys understand. One side of the story doesn't mean anything. Like, what's the other side? What's going on here? Why is this comedian guy, apparently, if that's an important thing, why is he signing a contract saying they can't go anywhere on weekends? What are you doing? What's the other side of the story? That's what I want to know. Bitch.
Because you're just going to be sitting in Dallas for no reason.
And throughout the interview, Dave also talks about how basically Steven wanted control or ownership over Dave's comedy special, which Dave had never agreed to give to Steven.
And then the next thing is comedy special releases through Louder with Crowder, because he always felt that he owned my special, even though, because he let me keep the door that night.
Okay.
But I didn't sign anything that said, oh, you're letting me keep the door, so now you own my comedy?
And on top of that, another common theme.
What does it mean when you say keep the door? Like he was filming in their studio or something? Also, if it was produced or sold with Louder with Crowder, why would you not assume that he owns it? Or at the very least has some type of license for it? Like, would that not be a standard assumption? Oh, ticket sales. Is it like being sold as a Louder with Crowder comedy special?
In the interview is also Steven apparently almost being, it seemed, afraid that Dave would be upstaging him, having funnier jokes or getting more attention.
It was just, hey, don't be funnier, don't be, and that's the truth. I mean, it sounds bitter, but I knew it was true because I was pulled aside and I said it, and it was, hey, make sure if you're doing a rant or like you guys are riffing, he gets the last word.
You were told this explicitly?
Yes.
Now, obviously, these allegations don't look good for Steven Crowder. I think having someone who worked with or for you leaving on bad terms, That's never a positive thing if you are an employer. But what makes this whole situation look especially bad for Crowder, honestly, is the previous drama he's had with the Daily Wire, and I'm sure we are all familiar with what I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with it, I did do my own stream addressing the situation. Give that a watch if you haven't seen it. But essentially, during that whole fiasco, Steven Crowder was trying to paint himself as, you know, the morally upright party, the party who's in favor of fairness, or at least fair contracts, and not taking advantage of people, even if you have the power to do so. And if you've seen that stream of mine, you'll know, and I'm not gonna lie, in that particular instance, I definitely wasn't on the Daily Wire's side. I've said it before, I don't like how that company does business. That bridge is already burned, so I have no problem talking about it. I mean, I like a lot of their work. I definitely like a lot of their hosts, but to me, that was not a good term sheet. That was, I would even go as far as to say, exploitative. However,
I don't know if these people, is this an act or are they all retarded? I actually don't know. I wish I could talk to one of these people. Like, I can't tell if they are actually fucking retards or if they're all just trying to like clout shark on all the Crowder drama right now. I just can't tell. An exploitative first offer term sheet. Get a fucking pen out and cross some shit off then. Jesus Christ.
just because I don't like the way that the Daily Wire behaved in that situation, that doesn't necessarily mean that Steven Crowder was in the right. And I know that a lot of people who watched that stream came away saying, oh, you're just simping for Crowder, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, in that stream, I explicitly mentioned that Steven Crowder has his own problems and he is certainly hard to work with. Well, this is a great example of those problems and him being hard to work with. And honestly, I'll go so far as to say, yes, if what Dave is saying is true, then in my opinion, this does make Steven Crowder a hypocrite. I mean, in my opinion, you can't in good faith complain about exploitative contracts while also simultaneously trying to get your co-host to start their own show every week on your network while offering them no extra money, which is something that Dave says Steven did try.
Tried to get, wait, hold on.
Next thing is he's ready to start his own show by his own Friday show by October 14th. So now I have a show every Friday for no extra money. So I can't tour on Fridays.
Let's break this down. So you are going to have your own show, which is a plus.
Yes.
But you're not getting paid a single dime to host your own new show on his network or his platform.
Correct.
From where I'm standing, even if—
Wait, then why would you even agree to do it? So there's so much weird shit going on here. If what that guy's saying is true right there, then why the fuck would you even agree to do that show? Wouldn't you just say, no, I don't want to? He said no one left? Oh, okay.
Only a fraction of the things Dave says about Steven are true, it still paints him as someone who is very hard to work with, very controlling, and someone who, yeah, the rumors about are true, because Steven, I've mentioned this in the stream, he does have a reputation in this industry as being difficult to work with and kind of a diva. And I would say that the fact that Steven has such high turnover for his show, for co-hosts and things like that, it kind of does, in a way, lend credence to the idea that perhaps this man is not the best to work with. You know what, obviously, as someone who's had my own interactions with Steven that didn't end that great, if you guys, again, have seen the stream, you'll know what I'm talking about. I do recognize the fact that perhaps I'm just kind of biased against Crowder here, so I did want to go over some of the points that Crowder's defenders have brought up. Specifically, one of the points of contention that Dave mentions with Michael many times is that when he was appearing on Louder with Crowder, they were supposed to be plugging his tour dates and his show dates because he was actually making quite a bit of money on the road versus just being a co-host, and it's almost like he was part of the package of him being on Crowder was getting that exposure to promote his tour. However, Dave says that after a certain point on the show, he wasn't able to promote his tour dates. He was being told specifically, don't plug your tour. That, or he was only able to plug tour dates that involved Steven because they did tour together for at least a while. Now, I don't watch Louder with Crowder enough to be able to give a statement as to what does or does not happen regularly on the show, but according to fans of Louder with Crowder, perhaps Dave is overestimating including the amount that he was stopped from plugging the show. As this person on Twitter explains, Dave, I love you, man. Crowder always seemed like a tough guy to work for, but I watch every day. The claim that he didn't promote your shows just isn't true, man. I always knew where you were. It was mentioned all the time. Sorry you did like that, but that was hard to buy. To which Dave responded, I didn't say he never did, and no, people didn't, and it was a point of tension. And Dave also explained on Twitter saying, I'm only posting this because it's a common response and misunderstood. He promoted my appearances for a long while, no question. It became a daily battle behind the scenes when my new contract was thrust all over my face and chest. And this interview and this whole drama with Michael and Dave, this is something that was discussed on the Timcast episode with Ryan Long, and I did watch that segment on YouTube, and I scrolled through the comments, and there were actually a lot of Crowder fans saying, hey man, Dave, I like you, but your shows were getting plugged a lot. And again, I personally can't speak to how often they were or were not being plugged, but to play devil's advocate here, obviously there are two sides to every story, and maybe in Crowder's mind at least, they were doing their end and promoting his show plenty. Additionally, other people have said things like, hey man, being expected to actually show up for a job you're being paid for and to not be late, that's not really that big of a deal. I don't know why you're complaining, which, hey, I would love to know from you guys. Do you think that the things Dave accuses Crowder of, if true, do you think they are that big of a deal? Because obviously what we found out during the whole Daily Wire debacle was that, yeah, people do have different standards of what is and what is not acceptable in a workplace. And I mean, at the end of the day, perhaps this is a situation where no one was necessarily in the wrong, but it's just that these were two people with different work attitudes that didn't mesh well together. Which brings us to another criticism that people have of Dave after seeing this interview, that none of this needed to be public, and him coming forward with it all was actually in pretty bad taste. Case in point, Jeffrey Richardson on Twitter tagged Dave saying, I don't know if this was necessary to do, to which Dave replied, I was denied a face-to-face conversation and I'm not welcome back. I have to say why I left. I don't have the power and reach he has. At the end of the day,
but that's not true either. You can very easily just say, you know, me and Louder with Crowder parted ways. You know, we had our time together, but there were differences. We had disagreements over future contracts and plans, and now we've decided to do our own thing. Like, you can just say that and leave. You don't have to be super dramatic about it.
The interview with Michael Malice, Dave makes it very clear that he's not asking people to stop watching Steven's show, and that moving forward, he wishes Steven nothing but the best. But I think a lot of people who are supporting Steven right now in light of this new information may no longer want.
Perfectionism and procrastination are ruining my life. I'm at my wit's end with my perfectionism. It's taken over my life and is causing me to procrastinate on every creative project I've ever wanted to pursue. The arts, music, animation, writing, video games, etc. I have so many ideas and passions, but I can never seem to follow through with them because I'm too afraid of not being able to execute them perfectly. I also have a hard time learning new things quickly and effectively. I put so much pressure on myself to understand everything immediately. This has made it difficult for me to progress in my personal and professional life. I constantly feel like I'm not good enough. It's not just affecting my hobbies, it's affecting my work and personal relationships too. I'm constantly self-guessing myself and feeling like a failure because I'm not meeting my own impossibly high standards. I'm struggling to find joy in anything anymore, and it's all because of my crippling perfectionism. Every task feels like a defeat, and if anything isn't perfect, it's like I'm failing at everything. I put every task on the back burner, procrastinating on everything I need to do, because I'm too afraid of not being able to execute it perfectly. I feel like I'm stuck in a cycle of perfectionism and procrastination. I don't know how to break free. I don't know where to begin, and what's worse, I don't know what to do if it doesn't work out. Have any of you experienced this level of perfectionism before? How did you overcome it? Are there any strategies or techniques that have worked for you? I'm willing to try anything at this point. The first thing that I'm gonna say is someone says, I'm willing to try anything. And this is why I'm gonna start by pushing back a little bit. Are you willing to try anything? Or are you only willing to try things that work? So if we look at this, what's the first thing to understand? The first thing to understand is that when someone says, I'm willing to try anything, we're not actually willing to try anything. That's crazy. I only want to try things that work. But let's understand perfectionism and procrastination, okay? So this person is brilliant, insightful, articulate. Love it. So let's understand a couple of things. The first is that the procrastination is a symptom of the root of perfectionism, right? So why is it hard for them to get started? They even laid this out. So if I want to be perfect, I can't get started until I know it'll be perfect. And so we can't get started because we're setting an impossible standard for ourselves because we need to be perfect. I need a plan that will achieve perfection. And I'm going to figure out the perfect plan before I get started because what's the point in starting without a perfect plan? Because then I'll do all this work and it won't be perfect and that won't be good enough. So why even bother getting started in the first place? So the procrastination comes out of the desire for perfection. So if you want to disable the procrastination, you need to do one of two things. Either let go of the perfectionism entirely and be okay starting without being perfect, which there's a path to. We've done a video about, we've done multiple videos about how to overcome procrastination. There's something in the ADHD guide, and guide to doing stuff, by the way. But let's understand that procrastination, if your goal is perfection, you can't get started until you have a plan that is perfect. So since there's no such thing as a perfect plan, because as a human being, you can't predict the future, it's impossible to get started. So why do we say that this procrastinates? Does this person never do anything? No, they do stuff, but it's really hard for them to get started. And that's because something else has to overcome their need for procrastination. Desperation, last minute panic. It's due tomorrow. Someone else is mad at me. And so experiencing life as this person is awful. It's like you're a ping pong ball and you're getting swatted back and forth between perfectionism and what other negative emotion is required to overcome the procrastination related to the perfectionism. So you have no control over your life. You're being like swatted around by negative emotions. And when you're getting swatted around by negative emotions and you have no control, your performance suffers. You certainly ain't behaving perfect, let alone good. So how do we tackle this? So let's understand the desire for perfectionism. So we want to be perfect for a couple of reasons. The first is sometimes our performance correlates with our value as a human being. So if you look at like a lot of people grow up in situations where they're taught, you're not a good child, you're not a bad child. Oddly enough, people who are taught that they're good children or bad children, this doesn't apply to them. There are some of us who are taught that whether we are good children or bad children depends. So in a very traumatic situation, abusive situation, these people are not perfectionists. They don't struggle with perfectionism because they're like, I suck to begin with. I'm going to suck no matter what. Their problem is different. And then there are people who are sort of brought up in a secure environment where like, you're a good kid and it's okay to fail and like, that's not us. Then there are those of us who are perfectionistic. And what happens with the perfectionistic people, whether I'm a good or a bad person, depends on my performance. It depends. And once we fall into that, then we're in big trouble because our value as a human being and we want to make people happy. We want to make people happy. We want to be a good person. These are important ideals. These are good things to want. It's important to make other people happy. It's important to feel good about ourselves. Like self-esteem is important. The problem is that depending on your wiring, you started equating performance with value as a human being. And so what do we want? I want high self-esteem. I want to be a great human being. Of course, who doesn't want to be a great human being? How do I become a great human being? Great human being equals perfect performance. When do you see this? You see this in people whose value was dependent on their accomplishments. That's one reason why people are perfectionistic. Second reason why people are perfectionistic is they cannot tolerate the consequences of a non-perfect solution. So if I'm not perfect, that means that stuff can happen, okay? And that stuff, when that stuff happens that is not perfect, there is a response within me that is too painful to deal with. So I'll give you all an example. I like someone. I want to ask them out on a date. Them saying no hurts so much. I'm rejected. I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be a POS. I want to be a Chad. And that rejection, I've learned to fear that rejection because I've been rejected or whatever in the past. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a perfect strategy because if I can come up with the perfect strategy, I can control the result. And if I can control the result, then I don't need to suffer. So the desire for perfection is a protection against the consequences of a suboptimal result. If I get a B and someone else gets an A, they're going to get an award. Everyone's going to cheer and clap, and I'm going to feel jealous. I hate feeling jealous. I hate feeling second best. I don't want to feel second best. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be perfect, and then I'm going to be number one, and then everyone's going to clap for me. And I'm going to feel so good. I hate that feeling of envy. I hate that feeling of jealousy, especially because I know that person deserved it, and I don't deserve it, which makes it hurt even worse. So we desire perfection to protect ourselves from the consequences of a lack of perfection. So it usually has to do with intolerance of negative emotion and has to do with our sense of ego or value. So then how do we tackle these two things? So let's start with the second one. So if we think about procrastination, I can't get started until I know I'm going to be perfect. And if I'm perfect, then everyone's going to cheer for me. Everyone's going to clap for me. I'm going to feel good and I don't want to feel bad. And so if we think about literally what this will feel like for you is when you think about getting started, there will be an anticipation of a particular feeling. So what the procrastination will look like is if I get started now, and you can pay attention to yourself, okay? What this looks like is if I get started now, your mind will warn you of a particular consequence. You'll start to feel fear or jealousy or inferiority or something like that. And that's how you know that that's what's going on. Even the thought of getting started is evokes that emotion. And then that emotion is something you're so terrified from, you run away from it so you don't get started. You procrastinate. The other thing is that if you're trying to get started and you think about other people, and this can be tricky because this can evoke an emotion as well, but this person will think this about me. And this person will think this about me. And if I do it this way, they will think this about me. If I do this, they will love me. And if what you're chasing is something from someone else, that's that other kind of perfectionism, because it's about ego. It's about wanting to be seen a particular way. Now the question becomes, okay, so like, what do we do about it? And that's where each of these things is like monumental tasks on its own. So now I'm left with the task of trying to figure out how to help y'all with it. So let's start with the emotions. So the first thing is when you feel that procrastination coming on, you will respond to it. You'll either quit the task and beat yourself up, or you'll complete the task and like kind of beat yourself up and push through it. Does that kind of make sense? Like even if, so I think about, okay, I need to start studying today. And then I step away and then I start thinking about, I didn't study today, I need to study, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to beat myself up. But the interesting thing is once you start that cycle, you're no longer thinking about studying. You're beating yourself up for not studying. So you've actually stepped away from the task. Or when that beating yourself up is strong enough, you push yourself through and you start engaging in the task. But you're not sitting in that middle zone, if that makes sense. You've pushed through the procrastination or you've run away from the procrastination. And now the problem has become you haven't really conquered the procrastination. You've let your guilt, despair, or frustration overcome it, which means now you are becoming dependent on the frustration, fear, or guilt to overcome the procrastination. Then you're screwed because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So what we need to do is just sit with procrastination. Just sit there in that moment. It's not about beating yourself up. Today I need to do some studying. I'm going to try to study right now. Don't force yourself into it. Notice the frustration. Just sit there and don't do your work. Sit with the procrastination. Don't start it. Don't run away from it. Don't beat yourself up. You'll notice those things and move away from when you start beating yourself up. No, I should just start it. No. We're just going to sit there. Set a timer for 5 minutes. We are not going to start studying for 5 minutes. Just going to sit and do nothing. So how do we stop playing ping pong? Stop hitting the ball. You're tired of getting knocked around? Just sit. And this is where your mind will start to rebel. It'll say, but if I just sit, I'll never get anything done. And all those kinds of things. And there it is again with the stick. Where's the ping pong paddle? Pop. Nope. It's just 5 minutes. We're gonna do anything. No, you need to do stuff. You need to do stuff. We're just gonna chill. 5 minutes. Breathe. You can do meditation if you want to. You got to be careful because if you start meditating to start working, that's another ping pong paddle. You need to meditate more. If you meditated better, you'd be able to work. Nope, we're just going to sit. 5 minutes, set a timer. Just feel the tolerance. And this is where you say, but it's not working. I'm not being productive. Yes, you are. What you are doing for those 5 minutes is tolerating the emotion and not letting it control you. You are literally training yourself to be resistant to the swat of the ping pong paddle. Your ball is becoming heavier. It's no longer a ping pong ball. It's becoming stone, lead, some kind of super dense alloy. And if you rise to the level of Buddha, you're going to be like a supernova or a black hole, infinite density, and nothing will be able to touch you. Just tolerate. Don't do a damn thing and don't react to any of your emotions either way. Do y'all get that? Now, what if you have the other one? What if people think this and think that about you? This is where it's kind of tricky, but what you've got to do is recognize there's two different things here. One is the task that you need to do, and one is how people will respond to the task. Which one do you really want? Because as long as the two are tangled together, you're SOL. Y'all get that? Like you're like trying to fight a war on two fronts. You can't make people happy and do work. You can either do work, you can't even really ever make people happy. All you can do is do the work. So acknowledge that in this work, you are adding another victory condition. It's like we're playing this game and now there's this second victory condition. And it's like, holy crap, that makes winning the game way harder. And what are we actually trying to do? We're trying to stop procrastinating. So what we're trying to do is get started. But when we layer in that second victory condition of this needs to be perfect so that people will love me, like that's really hard because you can't get people to love you. And now it's like I'm playing an RTS game, or let's say I'm playing an FPS game, and the victory condition is like something that doesn't exist in the game. It's like there's one victory condition, which is score like 15 points by hitting 15 bullseyes. And the second victory condition is get elected as president of the United States. You're like, that's not even in the game. That's what we're doing. Like if you're trying to like study and your mind is adding this thing of if you don't get an A, your parents won't love you. Like how are you even supposed to study? Like there's nothing in the textbook about making your parents love you. That's something you're layering on top. So separate those two things. It's the only shot you've got. It's to separate those two things. And even then, it'll be a challenge. It's not easy to separate them, but then sort of ask yourself in that moment, can I at least get started on the work? And I'll worry about making other people, I know I want to make them happy. I can worry about that later. So as best as you can, procrastinate on making other people happy. And just get started with the work. Can I just do this for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? And if it's not good, I'll solve that problem. Talk to the part of your mind that's like, oh, it's not going to be enough. And it's like, okay, fine, but it'll be a start. We always quit later, but let's get started. And this kind of cognitive reframe, this cognitive flexibility can be really hard to do, and it's not going to work the first time you do it. But if you keep trying, you'll start to get some traction, right? It's kind of like learning how to do a push-up. If you've never done a push-up before, you can't even do a single push-up. So even if you're like thinking about pull-ups, like if you can't do a single pull-up and failure is inevitable, how do you learn how to do one pull-up? You jump up, you grab the bar, and then you train yourself on the descent, right? You let the rate of dropping slow down, and that'll strengthen the muscles, and then eventually you'll be able to do one pull-up. So oddly enough, trying to separate it, even if it doesn't work, is still strengthening those muscles. And the real way to overcome this, whether you're becoming, a ping pong ball to a black hole or separating these things out, it's a painful process of repeated failures. And the beautiful thing is once you start engaging with that, something will shift in your mind. It's okay to fail. And now the pendulum is swung far, far, far away from perfectionism. And then shit becomes easy. Or did they take care of everything? Or did you not even get invited? Or did you not even go? Or did you go with a gift but no card? Or did you go with a card or no gift? Okay, the 25-year-old loner always wonders how their life could have turned out differently. Most people they like seem to just disappear eventually. People often ask why they are so quiet. Has friends but doesn't feel fully a part of the group. Constant mental health and self-esteem issues, no best friend since primary school, never had a girlfriend, has finally given up their optimism. In this example, it's a man, but we've seen this in women as well, and homosexuals and bisexuals and stuff like that, right? So you can be a woman and never had a boyfriend. Can always sense most people don't really want to be talking to them when they are. Always feels out of place. Hobby/skill worked. They worked hard at, but just not good enough to be a professional. Doesn't really care where their life is going anymore. Always feels out of place. Seems normal to other people, but always feels alone inside. And secret lifelong pornography addiction. The 25-year-old loner. So when we look at this, unfortunately, what we're seeing is that an increasing amount of our society identifies with this. We have 25-year-old loners at a scale and pace that we've never had before. So we see this, there are even like culturally specific terms for this, and even very extreme versions, right? So like in China, there's a movement called laying flat, which is not exactly the same as this. In a lot of Latin America or Spain, they're called ninis, so ni trabajo ni estudiar. We call them NEETs also, not employment, education, or training. In Japan, they're probably the first ones that coined the term hikikomori, shut-ins, right? So we know that there's something going on. I recently read a paper from the field of economics about how young people entering the workforce, especially men, is at a historic all-time low. And so even in psychiatry, we call this failure to launch. So that's like a term that we'll kind of use. So here's the pattern of someone who fails to launch. So what'll happen is you'll have someone who grows up and does pretty good, like in primary school, middle school. They don't fail out. They have some friends. They get invited to birthday parties. They pass their classes. They kind of do okay. But then what happens is the later they go in life, the more the gap increases between them and other people. But there's not like a traumatic event, right? Because in society, like we're okay with that. We sort of are okay if like, oh, if you struggle in life and something bad happened to you, then it's not your fault. But what happens is there's an increasingly large a proportion of people who don't have anything to blame, really, except for themselves, right? It's not like I was horribly abused. It's not like I had some terrible accident. Just every year that goes by, I just kind of slip a little bit further and further behind. And you kind of fail to launch. You start out on the runway, you start getting some momentum, you're kind of speeding up, your front landing gear starts to lift, and then for some reason your plane just never takes off. You had all the momentum just like everyone else. If you look at yourself when you were 16, you had so many possibilities, but you just don't get the plane off the ground. Maybe you even finished college. And so what starts to happen is all of those things that you had kind of had as you were a child, over time, they start to slough off. You had a best friend. They went to college. You went to a different college. You all started to drift apart. They made new friends. For some reason, you didn't. And so as they made new friends and started to live their lives and started to date, they had less and less time for you. And you somehow weren't able to do that. And so they move off in one direction and they kind of leave you behind. But when people look at you, there's nothing like grossly disfiguring, right? It's not like you smell bad. It's not like you have bad hygiene. It's not like, you seem okay on the outside, but internally you're lonely, you're isolated, and every year that goes by, it gets a little bit worse. So you had all the momentum, you just didn't launch. And so what we tend to think about ourselves in this situation, and what other people will eventually start to think of us, and even what we start to suspect or see is that other people start to think of us this way, is this term loser. The loner gets replaced by a loser. I'm a loser, right? We've had that term for a long time. And when someone kind of crosses into a loser, then it is their fault, right? Because this guy's a loser, like they just don't do anything for themselves. And so if we want to get out of this situation, we're going to do what we normally do here. First of all, understand what on earth is going on. This is a systemic issue, right? So I don't think it's fair to blame just the individual. If it was just you, there would be no term like a NEET, a NIHI, NINI, hikokomori. We literally have all over the world culturally specific terms. People are recognizing this phenomenon and assigning words in their own language to describe this. So it's not just you, it's a systemic issue. So first of all, we have to understand what the systemic issue is. Why is that? It's because if we want to fix it, here's the crux of the problem. If you're a 25-year-old loner, you think it's your fault. So you accept responsibility not only for your own actions, but everything on the systemic side too, because you don't think that it's systemic, right? Because it's clearly you, because other people are out there and they're doing fine, so it can't be a systemic issue. Then you start accepting responsibility for things that you have no control over. You have some control over your personal actions, but you don't control what society does. But we don't even acknowledge that society is influencing this, so then you end up taking responsibility for all of it. But you can't actually control it. So once I start taking responsibility for things that are out of my control, all I can do is lose. And so that feeds the cycle. So we first of all have to understand what's going on from a societal perspective. Once we understand what's going on from a societal perspective, then we'll understand what we're actually responsible for. Once we understand what we're responsible for, then we can devote all of our energy to it. We'll talk a little bit about why that can be challenging or hard, and then ultimately we'll see a path forward. If I specialize in one thing, it's helping 25-year-old loners. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the first thing that I kind of noticed as I was training to become a psychiatrist is I would gravitate sometimes towards these people, or these people would gravitate towards me. Maybe it's because I too was a 25-year-old loser. When I was 25 years old, I had graduated from college after 5 years with a 2.4 GPA, right? I rounded up to 2.5 because it was 2.47 or something like that. Didn't really have any money, was applying to medical school for the second time, right? So I just failed to get in for 1 year and was applying my second year, failed to get in that year as well. And so who am I at that point? I've got nothing going for me. And so as I started working with these people in my office, I started to notice a couple of things. The first is when they came in, I thought, even in my head, I thought, wow, this guy's like a real loser, like me. We're both losers. But as I learned more about psychiatry, I started to realize, oh my God, person is actually not a loser. What's actually, as I talked to them about their experience of life, I started to notice all kinds of subtle differences that we take for granted. So I'll give you all a simple example. And these are the kinds of questions that you should ask yourself. Because the 25-year-old loner sheds relationships, right? Like over time, it's not like they drive people away. They don't rupture things. They don't cause problems. They're not drama kings or queens. Just over time, people start to slough off. And why is that? What's going on? And what I started to realize is there are all kinds of things which these people were never taught. So for example, I want you all to think about this, okay? When you were growing up, when you were 7 years old, how did you learn the rules of making friends? Did your parents make sure you got invited to birthday parties? When you had a birthday party, did your parents invite kids over? When you went to a birthday party, did your parents pick out a gift for the person that you were, did they do all the work? Did they pick out the gift and they wrote the card and just handed it to the other parent? Or were you involved in that process? Were you taught, okay, let's go get a gift for someone. When we get a gift for someone, let's write a card. I'm going to hand you the present and the card, and you're going to go in, and I realize you're going to feel a little bit awkward. You're going to go to your friend, and you're going to hand it to them. Or did they take care of everything? Or did you not even get invited? Or did you not even go? Or did you go with a gift but no card? Or did you go with a card or no gift? Another wild thing, when you had a birthday party and other kids showed up, did you give them return gifts? Did you go up to each and every one of your guests at the party, give them a little goodie bag and say, thank you for coming? Did your parents make you do that? Because this is how you form relationships. This is how you maintain relationships. There are all kinds of things. Did your parents enroll you in particular things? When you had conflict, I remember when I was in the 5th grade, I got into a fight with a kid in my school because we were all part of a friend circle and there were 4 of us. And we started getting into conflict because I wanted to hang out with 2 people. I didn't want to hang out with this 4th kid. The 4th kid wanted to hang out with the 2 people who didn't want to hang out with me. I got a phone call from his mom to my house. And she talked to me a little bit about how it's not good to fight over friends. And like, is it kind of cringe? Absolutely. Was the kid embarrassed? I imagine so. Did I kind of get reprimanded by some other kid's parents? Sure. Were my parents even aware of what was going on? Absolutely not. But the next day at school, there was civility between the 2 of us. And we ended up doing fine for the rest of the year. A parent actually interceded on behalf of their child. How did the parent even know that? It's because they must have talked to their kid. They must have said, hey, what's going on with you today? I'm having trouble making friends. And the parent is like, oh, let me do what a parent is supposed to do. If my child is having trouble learning how to walk, I will teach them to walk. If they're having trouble making friends, let me teach them how to make friends. But what a lot of parents do, and we'll get to why this isn't really their fault in a second, is they don't teach their kids, right? They just sort of send their kids off and assume that the child will learn. Because this is not like, it's not like parenting 101, right? Like not all parents do this. And the thing is that used to work. What's changed? One thing, the internet. The internet has changed. So it used to be that we did not have social alternatives or socially fracturing forces like we have today. So there's an increase in globalization and you can work remotely and people will move from one place to another. 100 years ago, I remember talking to my grandmother about like when she grew up in her village, what was it like for her? And it's hard to describe this, but like I can't really do it justice, but she was explaining to me that the world was a fictional concept. The idea of other nations were like theoretical. No one in her village of 200 people, not a single person in her village of 200 people, or the generation above, or the generation above, or the generation above, had ever visited another country. For the 300 years in that village, and every person in it, not a single person had visited another country. I remember when I went to that village, one of my like distant cousins was like, came up to me and was like, "Did you come here in an airplane?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, of course." I was like 9. And he's like, "But how did you get here in an airplane?" I was like, "I don't know, dude. Like I sat in the seat." And he looked at me and was like, "How do you not fall out?" I was like, "What the?" And then it clicked. The only mode of transportation this kid has ever seen is a cart that is attached to an ox. How do you go so fast and not fall out? So the social system that our parents learned involved tight-knit communities. That's what human beings have evolved into. So what we teach our kids, we just like kind of show up like in that village. You don't need to explicitly teach kids social skills because they show up, they go to school, they see the same 30 kids. Half of those kids are going to get married. They're going to have families. They're going to see each other every day in the town square. There's no fracturing. And so what's happened is as the internet has grown, people have been more fractured. And so what's happening is there's a need for parents to intervene in a way that they never have before because like society just didn't work like that. And the end result is we have a bunch of people who aren't taught how to maintain social relationships. The reason the parents don't really teach it is because they really weren't taught it. But the thing is, for them, they didn't really need to learn because society was structured in such a way where you sort of had persistent contacts, right? You went to work every day and you saw the same people, and then you went to barbecues and all this kind of good stuff. But now we're working from home. Now we're freelancers. Now we're this. Now we're that. Now people are moving away to different, like moving is like not that wild, right? It's not like people are like, "Oh my God, if you moved, how did you take your house?" I didn't take my house. I rented a place over there. It's like, "Oh my God, that's so weird." So society is changing. And so once you start to realize this, what I realize as a psychiatrist is that when I work with these people and they don't maintain relationships, it's not because they're losers. It's because they were literally never taught. And I sort of almost like realized, I was like, oh, this is this person's karma. So when I was trying to make sense of this, right, there's a scientific angle. But when it comes down to it, I can't fix their parenting and I can't fix their what society does or doesn't do. I can't fix or change the fact that we're entering the digital age. So how do I help this person? And what I did is I conceptualized it as their karma. And this is really important for a mindset shift, right? So I want y'all to understand this. If you think you're a 25-year-old loner, I want you to think about all the confluence of events that have made you who you are today. Do you get to choose where you're born? Do you get to choose when you're born? Do you get to choose who your parents are? Because if we're saying that excellent parenting is a differentiating factor here, and we're not saying that the parents are bad, it's just they just don't know that they need to teach this. If you were born 100 years ago, would you have this problem? Right? There are all kinds of things that you don't control about your circumstances. This is your karma. Now, karma sometimes comes with all these weird, like, associations like, oh, you deserve this and reincarnation, but forget about that. What we know is that even scientifically, there's a confluence of events, and this is what we learn as psychiatrists, is there's a confluence of events that makes a human being. Their parenting, their attachment style, whether traumatic experiences happen, like literally whether like when you went to a birthday party, what were you taught? What is the right way to maintain relationships? How many times a year did you call your cousins who live on the opposite side of the country? Just to talk. Because I know that like my parents made me call random people in India who I had never met and say hi to them. But what they did in that moment is instill in me and teach me a particular social skill. I was like, I don't know who this person is. They're like, no, you have to talk to them for 5 minutes. And I was like, this sucks, but I did it. They made me do it. And now it's like, I know how to maintain a relationship because they taught me. So much, just think about what you were really taught about maintaining relationships. If you struggle to maintain a relationship, even at the age of 25, do your parents sit down with you and say, hey, you seem kind of lonely. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, did your parents even maintain relationships? And so once you start to realize, and what I discovered as a psychiatrist is there's no such thing as a loser. Does not exist. It's a judgment that we make out of ignorance of what is this person's circumstances, what is their upbringing, what were they taught, what were they given. And what I started to see is there's no such thing as a loser, it's just their karma. Does that mean that they deserve it? That's not what karma is about. Karma is about understanding what are all the 1,000 different things that form together to create a human being in the year 2022 at the age of 25. And how much does that person control? Very little. So now we get to something really important. And once I share that with that person, once we can get on the same page, hey, there's a lot of stuff that actually is not your fault. Once we remove loser from the equation, then something really magical starts to happen. Because now you begin to realize, okay, it's not my fault that I'm here, but it's absolutely my responsibility to do something about it. Then the question becomes, what can I do? So, there are a couple of steps to this. The first, and we're going to kind of summarize this because people say this. The first is don't blame yourself for all of it, right? You can blame yourself for some of it, but this is what we're sort of talking about. Take a karmic perspective. What were you taught about maintaining relationships? Once you don't blame yourself, next thing that you've got to figure out is what are you truly responsible for? So step one is get rid of all of the blame. Step two is, okay, what am I responsible for? Now, here's where the mind is going to do a really important trick. When you start to think about what you're responsible for, if you're not careful, you'll start thinking about shoulds. I should do this, I should do that, I should do this, I should be able to do this, I should. Shooting yourself in the foot. The right question isn't what you should do. The right question is what can you do? So when I'm thinking about a goal, like let's say I'm here, I should be here. I have so much potential. I should be able to get an A. I should be able to maintain relationships. The gap between here and here is wide. And as I take one step forward, I'm unsatisfied. Because look at what I should have accomplished all this. And so progress actually makes you feel worse. And if in the system of your mind, progress makes you feel worse because anytime you take a step forward, all you focus on is the 9 steps that you didn't take forward, you're never going to get there. So I was once working with a East Asian kid, adolescent in high school. And says, I came, was really, depressed, right? So his parents had brought me to my office with so much frustration at the end of their rope. They're like, my kid keeps on bringing up, basically what they were saying, tried to cover it up, is like, my kid keeps on bringing up this depression crap. So can you please fix him? Because he keeps on bringing up this excuse. And as I talked to the kid, I was like, why do you feel sad? And he says, for once in my life, I got a 93 on a test, on a calculus test. I told my parents asked me, what grade did you get? I said, I got a 93. And for once in my life, all I want from my parents is instead of looking at the 7 questions I got wrong, I wish they would look at the 93 questions I got right. Just once. I want them to look at the 93 questions I got right. But they never look at the 93. All they ever look at is the 7 questions I got wrong. And if you take one step forward in your life and you say to yourself, this isn't what I should do, I should be better, I should be able to accomplish more, you are doing the same damn thing as that kid's parents. You're just focusing on the stuff that you failed to do. And what is that going to do for your motivation? So be very careful when I start to ask you, okay, what are you responsible for in terms of social improvement and making friends and all this kind of stuff? Your mind is going to populate, automatically catch it with all the 1,000 things you should do. That's not how you move forward. And this is what we mean in like the yogic tradition. We say, live in the present. Like you will see it on all of the blogs and Instagrams and whatnot. Live in the present. Present is good. What does that mean? That means what can you do, not what should you do. Because you're here. This is the future. This is the should. It's to look over here. Instead, look over here because this is where you are. And ask yourself, what can I do today? Forget about what you should do. Forget about your potential. Forget about all that kind of stuff. Today, if you are a 25-year-old loner, what can you do today? And do that thing. And you can say, I can't do anything. That's okay too. So it's really asking yourself, what can you do? Because the answer isn't nothing. I can't go out. I should go to a bar and make friends, but I can't go out to a bar and make friends. Okay, fine. Can you message someone on Discord? Can you send a text to an old friend of yours? Can you respond to your group, like your work group's WhatsApp group, whatever, your work WhatsApp group or your work Signal chat or whatever? What can you do? And start with those things. And that something magical will happen when you forget about the should and you forget about the future and you focus on what you can do. Your goal is to do something, whatever. And then as you really start with what you can do, not what you should do, you focus on that thing. And as you do that, at the end of the day, you will have a success behind you instead of a failure, even though the action is the same. Right? Because I can send a message to a friend of mine and say, hey, what's up? You want to catch up sometime? But if my goal is to make 1,000 friends, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to be like, this pathetic loser, all he can do is message someone online. And then the same action can be progress or success, or it can be a sign of your overwhelming hopelessness as a human being. And so start with that thing. Just start with what you can do. And your mind will create all kinds of judgments. Let them come. It's okay. It'll judge. And say, you know what? I did what I can do today. And this is what's pretty neat about that. For people who are skeptical, but they're like, I'll never get there. So I was working on the stroke unit at the Massachusetts General Hospital. These are people who have strokes and can't walk anymore. How do you get someone who can't walk anymore to walk? One step at a time. What can you move? Okay, let's figure out, can you wiggle your toes? All right, great. Can you lift your leg? All right, great. Can you take a step? Not really. Okay, we're just going to lift legs today. Just wiggle your toes and lift your leg, curl, flex your ankle, extend at the knee joint, flex at the knee joint. Let's just start where we are. And this is literally the scientifically valid, proven process that physical therapists will do with people who have lost a chunk of their brain. And these amazing human beings that are physical therapists can take a human being who has lost a chunk of their brain and get them fucking walking again. That's the strategy that we need to implement for our mind. Start with where you are. Take one step forward. And as you do that day after day after day after day, and this is where your mind is going to say, oh my God, that's so exhausting. It's going to take such a long time. We don't care about that because what are we focusing on? Today. Forget about it. We're not worried about tomorrow. Don't think about tomorrow. The more you start to think about tomorrow, we're moving towards the future. Oh my God, I have to do this 100 days, 1,000 days. How many days will it take to catch up? All bad thoughts. Not going to be productive. It's the future thinking mind. Just going to do it today. Just going to do it today. Just going to do it today. And if you learn to do that, and then start to accumulate other things like resources and stuff like that, because what you can do today isn't always action. It can also be like learning, right? So even if I don't know how to go out to a bar, can I practice social skills somewhere else, right? That's why we have Social Sandbox on Discord. Can I learn a little bit about motivation? Okay, that's why we have Dr. K's Guide. Can I learn a little bit more about anxiety and social anxiety? Okay, like that also, you can maybe go see a therapist. You can watch Dr. K's Guide. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. The key is do something today. Whatever you can do. And accept that. And hopefully if you keep doing that, you won't be a 25-year-old loner. Or if you are a 25-year-old loner, you won't be a 26-year-old loner. Questions? AT Field is saying, what the social sandbox? How does it work? Great question. So social sandboxes in Discord. So here's what we realized. Parents aren't teaching y'all how to socialize properly. And by properly, it's not their fault because the world has changed. As we start to use Discord and online things, we start to become more socially anxious. The parts of our brain, this is kind of a really interesting concept. So part of the reason that I think the subjective experience of social anxiety is increasing is because the parts of our brain that reassure us in social situations are actually starting to become vestigial or atrophy. So when I interact with human beings in person, there are parts of my brain that interpret body language, and they do it without our awareness. So when I sit around and if I'm a 7-year-old and I spend every day playing with my friends outside, I learn to interpret body language. 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old. And then when I'm hanging out with people when I'm 16, that part of my brain works really well. And it interprets all the body language and it tells me, hey, you're doing fine. Everyone here likes you. When we start communicating online, that part of the brain shuts off. Just like a language that we don't practice, our brain is like, hey, we don't need this thing anymore. So our ability to be reassured by body language and behavioral signals decreases. As that part of our brain decreases, when we enter social situations, we no longer have reassurance from that, which results in increased social anxiety. So the more that we use the internet as a communication tool, the more socially anxious we become. So we discovered this at HG. And so we decided, hey, you know what? Let's just give people a chance literally to practice talking. It's a sandbox where you can come in and just have a conversation. Intentionally, it's not just about socializing on Discord. It's intentionally to learn the skills of socializing. Right? People are going to be there, going to ask you, okay, let's talk. And then as you struggle to talk, a coach is going to be there and going to be like, okay, what are you feeling right now? Let's figure out how to overcome those feelings. Let's try again. And what it is, I don't know how to say this, but you can jump into the water and teach yourself to swim eventually. Or you can go to a swimming class and within the span of 2 weeks, you can learn how to swim with focused intention. And this is the thing for people who feel behind in life. They're like, oh my God, it's so hard to learn. It's so hard to learn on your own. I completely agree. If you try to figure out yourself, it'll take you 5 years. But with the help of someone who knows what they're doing, you can learn a language in 1 month. You can learn to swim in 2 weeks. You can learn to ride a bike in a day. You can learn how to talk to another human being in a couple of weeks. It just requires focused practice, right? Focused guidance. Jade06 is saying, I've been lonely for years and I feel stressed when socializing and I can't tolerate anymore making my feelings even worse. Should I just give up? No. You should do it differently. So I think that there's what's making you want to give up. The feelings have piled up. So what you've got to do is clean out the feelings. Right? So anytime, so this is important to understand about how the mind works. We have a mind. When our mind has a negative experience, it comes with negative emotion. When we have a pile of negative emotion in our mind, we have two options. We can process it or we can numb it. As we turn to technology, which is so damn accessible, we numb it, right? So if I'm awkward at a party, I'll give you all an example. Let's say I feel awkward at a party. What do? I flip out and I start scrolling on my phone. What happens to the awkwardness? It kind of gets pushed to the back. It's kind of still there. It doesn't really get fixed, but it becomes more tolerable. And then I leave the party because no one is talking to me for an hour. Why is no one talking to me for an hour? Because I'm on my fucking phone. And then you're like, man, I feel like such a loser. No one wants to talk to me. And then you take those bundle of emotions with you. Some people may say the answer is just get off your phone, noob. No, it's not the answer. Because if you could do it, you would have done it. Right? So then when you take those pile of emotions, now what happens is the next time you go to the party, how do you feel going in? You carry a pile of emotions with you. Your brain has been wired to do this. Same mechanism of PTSD. As you enter and there's music playing and stuff like that, your brain is like, oh, by the way, we've been in this environment before. This environment sucks. Up comes the upsurging of negative emotions that you had from the last time that you went home, you had a couple drinks, you played some video games, you didn't process it at all. So all those emotions are waiting for you. They're like, hey, here we are. And so as those emotions come surging in, what do? Here's the phone. Start scrolling. Cycle repeats itself. So if you're in this situation, it can feel like your only choice is to suffer or give up. But what you've really got to do is take all those emotions that have piled up and like process them or vent them in some way, right? So therapy is a good option, for sure. There are all kinds of things like meditation, journaling, going for long walks, just letting those emotions come out in a safe way, and venting them, unburdening yourself. Coaching can help with that too. But the goal in coaching, if you go to it in coaching, coaching isn't just going to sit there and listen to your emotions. It's not a venting space. If that's what y'all are looking for, therapy is more appropriate. We're not saying that you can't vent there, but the goal of coaching, and this is all arguably also true of therapy. I've read some really interesting articles about what therapy is and isn't recently. Really interesting. But the goal in coaching is really going to be to change your behavior and get you to be able to go to the party and like have fun there. So venting emotion and sort of working through that is like a necessary step to moving forward. Also, not a bad idea to just get a straight up clinical evaluation for something like social anxiety. Great question, though. Dr. K, could you do a stream on good parenting, on like mindful parenting and parenting styles? I could do a stream. I think the challenge is that a stream won't cut it. So here's been our experience with parenting. The first is that we've got a whole course on good parenting. I mean, it's not really a course on good parenting. It's a course on communication and boundary setting, essentially. It's a course designed for parents whose kids are struggling with technology addiction. So we've got that. And why is it in a course format? It's because it like builds, right? So this is the shortcoming of things like Twitch and YouTube, is that they don't build. It's like a bite-sized thing. That's what the platform is designed for, right? Twitch streams and YouTube videos are designed to be wholly isolated, independent things. So there are some formats that are superior to these like it's just the platform. Like if you think about a course at a university, like the whole point of the course is that week 2 and week 3 and week 4 build on week 1, and each builds on the next. And when it really comes to good parenting, that's how we approach it. We also have a couple of like add-ons, right? Like so almost DLCs of sort. So there's some stuff about parenting in our upcoming guide about how to parent a kid with ADHD. Because that's what's really interesting. Is we always like think about, oh, my parents failed me because they didn't parent good enough. So the really interesting thing, if you have a diagnosis of ADHD, there is strong evidence that it shapes your parents' parenting style, increases their depression, and increases their stress level. It's not your fault. I mean, you didn't ask to be born with ADHD, but there are bi-directional effects when it comes to parenting and ADHD. So we go into that nuance, which is something that a lot of parents feel super guilty and kids blame them, and it's like a really unhealthy kind of thing. Parents don't realize that it's not their fault that having a neuroatypical child makes like it hard to be a parent, because the rules of parenting change. We've been taught particular rules about how to parent, and when you have a child who's not neurotypical, you have to change the rules. You have to adapt to the rules. And the cool thing is that when you adapt the rules to the needs of the child, then everyone gets better. There's even been studies that show that if you have a parent with anxiety and a child with anxiety, if you treat the parent's anxiety without touching the child's anxiety improves. There's a lot to dive into, and I don't think a single stream will cut it. That being said, if y'all have, I love the question, Peacock Lover, and if y'all have more specific, like, can you do parenting about, like, if there's an isolated, independent thing that we can cover in an hour, I'm happy to do it. Alim Haha is asking, is being a 25-year-old loner okay? Yes. It's okay to be a 25-year-old loner, and you should do something about it. See, that's the thing, is like, we start to live in a society where we think we should only do stuff, we should only act when things are wrong. I disagree. Excellent question. XBobBX. What happens when you do your thing for the day and text an old friend, but they never end up responding? Completely irrelevant. Remember, we started this discussion with what are you responsible for and what is the rest of the world responsible for? In that question, we see something really, really tricky, which is you are starting to accept responsibility for the behavior of another person. If they don't respond, how do you feel about yourself? You feel like a loser. That's what screws you. Not your fault that they didn't respond. Should have no impact on your self-worth or what you do tomorrow. Didn't work. No big deal. Let's move on. Tomorrow, what can I do today? Same thing. Same thing. Does not matter at all. What you control is your actions, not the outcomes of your actions. If I failed a test, but I studied 8 hours a day for the 10 days before the test, not my fault. Now, is there something to be learned from that? Oh, yeah, by the way, I studied for the wrong test. Right? I'm not saying that there isn't corrective behavior on your part, but like, you can't control whether other people respond. All you can control is what you can do. So then maybe there's a learning there, right? So tomorrow, what can you do? Maybe if you're reaching out to a different friend, take a look at your message and try to figure out, okay, what could I say that could be a little bit different? Is there some way I can improve? And if you do that, you'll get there. 100%. Or I guess 99%. I feel confident, I should say. Right? Because I don't know that the outcome isn't something that I can predict. So Scary Printer Sounds is saying it just takes commitment. That is both correct and incorrect. So it doesn't even, this is the scary thing. 99% of the time, Scary Printer Sounds is right. It just takes commitment. 1% though, there's no such thing as commitment. There's just what you do today. Commitment is hard. There's just what you do. It doesn't take commitment. It just takes today. Just today. Just today. Just today. How do I improve my social skills when somebody who has social anxiety disorder and can barely handle... How do I improve my social skills with somebody? Or I'm going to assume that... So Dasania Kale is asking, how do I improve my social skills? I'm going to assume as somebody who has social anxiety disorder. So if you have a clinical diagnosis, the first step is treatment. Right? So there are certain treatments that you can use that will reduce the burden of that diagnosis. And then you go out and you rehabilitate. And this is where I think therapists have fallen short, because we become so overwhelmed by like the severity of mental illness that we don't really do like psychology rehab. But that's what a lot of these people need. So if you've grown up with social anxiety your whole life, you have to start with treatment. But the challenge is that treatment is not a substitute for 10 years of atrophied social skills with living with social anxiety. What we need is like psychological rehab. And we'll even have this in some parts of psychiatry or psychology, where you'll have some kinds of like professional rehab and things like that. Where like, so I trained at this place called McLean Hospital, and McLean Hospital has really good programs for people to like learn how to have a job. So they'll set you up with like an internship at a nonprofit or something like that, where you like learn how to show up every day on time. You get a task, assigned some kind of tasks, and then you kind of go home. And so you learn some of these core skills, which you can feel pathetic for not learning. But if you've lived with mental illness that has deprived you of normal developmental milestones, you've got to make up for it. Okay. So Avi Rhoda is asking, what if I feel like I have nothing to say? This is what I want you to do. I want you to go back and watch any interview that we've done. And I want you to pay attention to what Dr. K says. For the first half hour of any interview, does Dr. K have anything to say? Absolutely not. Maybe here or there. I'm sure you can prove that statement wrong. You don't have to have anything to say to have a conversation. All you have to do is be willing to listen. That's what it takes to have a conversation. Don't need anything to say. If you've got nothing to say on the subject, doesn't mean you can't talk about it. Case in point, I have friends who talk about finance all the time. I got nothing to say about finance. So when I participate in those conversations, most of what it is me learning. It's like, hey, can you explain what this means? Can you help me understand that? All you need. Right? Kind of interesting. At some point, you may have something to say. Then you can share it. Okay, I'm going to try to catch up with a couple of comments. Do you think it's late to socialize at 31? I feel too old for every social activity. I see 20ers for the most part. It's never too late to socialize. I'm not saying that you're not going to feel old or out of place if you start hanging out with a bunch of 20-year-olds, but it's not too late. It's just, let's be clear. If you're a 31-year-old and you hang out with a bunch of like mid-20-somethings, you're going to feel out of place. Does that mean it's too late to socialize? No. It just means that you feel out of place. That's it. It's just a feeling. It's not a truth. It's just a feeling. I realized this front and center. Like when I started residency, average age of people was like 25, 26, maybe 27 actually. And I was like 31, 32. Like people are still, some of them are getting married, some of them are married. Like I'm having kids. And so like, it's weird. I started med school at the age of 28. Most people started at the age of like 22. I'm coming up on 30. I had my 30th birthday in med school. And they're like, yeah, 24, let's go party. And I'm like, I'm 30, dude. So it's totally okay to be older than like people. You're just older. It means I can still study. I can still hang out with them. If you're hanging out with people who are in their 20s and going to a concert, like even if you're 31 and they're 25, both of y'all can listen to the music. So focus on what you're there for. I'm not saying it's easy, but let's be precise about whether it's possible and what's truly getting in the way. What's getting in the way is here. Zach, this may sound kind of weird, but like, yeah. I'm kind of hearing that you're not really afraid of, I know it sounds weird.
Yeah, go on.
You're not really afraid of death. I think what bothers you, it sounds to me, is actually your inability to deal with death.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, things have been they've been a little bit up and down, but it's been, I guess, all right. I mean, the new games are getting released that I'm excited to play, so that's at least one positive, right?
Yeah, what are you looking forward to playing?
Burning Crusade. Unfortunately, it's getting released a bit earlier than I would have hoped for, and a few other games, Ashes of Creation, New World, other MMOs, basically.
Mm. Yeah, New World is Amazon Games' MMO?
Yeah, it is. I'm excited to play that.
And when is that coming out?
I actually don't know. I think it's August.
Okay. Is there like a beta or?
Yeah, there was. We played it for a while, and the game was fun for like 3 days, and it sucked. And so I'm hoping that when the game actually comes out, it'll be fun for at least 5. Pretty much where I'm at. Yeah. It's gaming in 2021. What can I say?
What is gaming in 2021?
Whenever they try to milk you out of all the money possible while simultaneously putting in the littlest amount of effort possible.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about Magic Legends. I don't know if you tried playing it.
I didn't play it, but I played Magic the Gathering a lot whenever I was younger. So I heard about it.
What did you hear?
I just heard it was an ARPG. and I didn't hear any good or bad things about it. I just heard people had said it came out, and then I never heard about it again. So you can kind of put 2 and 2 together there, and yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool. Like the conceptual design behind the game, I was super excited about. Like the idea is that you've got like a deck, right? So it's sort of like a deck builder, but it's like in an ARPG format. So you can have like 4 skills at any given time. But once you use a card, you like lose the spell and it goes back into your and then you have to like reshuffle and stuff. So there's like a lot of deck building and stuff. So it seemed like a super cool ARPG.
I was always hoping that, like, I mean, I paid a lot of attention to Magic like for many years whenever I played it, and I was in like high school and into college. So like anytime that something cool like that happens, I'll kind of be interested in it, but I just kind of expected to hear more about it later, and I just never did. So, you know, that's usually the way it goes.
Yeah, I heard that you know, I think what may have happened is there was like there were 4 classes and there's a 5th class that you can unlock. But the class is only unlockable through microtransactions. And then on top of that, the microtransactions are RNG. So the class is a drop from a loot box. So people were spending like $500 and still like not getting the class.
See, that's like I remember Apex Legends had something like that, and it was just like you got a little dagger for one of the characters, but like this is a whole class and it's $500. See, that's exactly the shit that I'm talking about, man. Like I said that I said a game should make you want to waste your time and not just waste your time, and I feel like all the games now, they don't just waste your time, they waste your time and your money. It's sad.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I feel like the I don't know, like maybe it's like I'm getting older or something, but like the allure to it and the smoke and mirrors behind the ways that they keep you playing the game are pretty much just mirrors now. You could just see it's just right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you're excited about Burning Crusade?
Yeah, I am.
WoW Classic Burning Crusade, right?
Yep, yeah, that's right.
And then you've been playing a lot of Shadowlands recently, or?
Yeah.
How do you feel about Shadowlands?
Not good. I feel like you know, I've played a game for 15 years, and the people that are running the game are ruining it, and I feel like I'm wasting my time playing it for the first time in like 15 years. It's sad.
How are they ruining it?
By just not knowing. I don't think they're doing what I would do. I think they're just not really putting in the effort that they need to. I think they're just trying to kind of compel people to play the game longer rather than enjoy the game. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I love your way with language, like compel versus enjoy.
Yes,
you know?
Yes.
And then you said also that a game should make you want to waste your time, not waste your time.
Yeah, it shouldn't just waste your you want to spend all day playing the game, not you have to.
Yeah.
And that's the way it used to be. And like I always wonder, right, is this because I'm older? Is it because the game is worse? And it's like you can never really dissect the two because you can't, you know, experience them in like some sort of controlled environment. But it does feel a lot different than it did.
You can't experience them in a controlled environment. What?
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah. So, like, for example, if I go and I play a game that I used to play whenever I was a kid, I can't really go back and experience that for the first time. It's like you can never step in the same river twice, right? And it's kind of the same paradigm where if I go back and I play Super Mario World for the 800th time, it's not going to be the same experience as I had whenever I was 5 years old playing it and getting upset and mad because I couldn't beat the game. So it's like, is the attachment to the games and the drive to play them diminishing because of the quality of the games, or is it diminishing because of a different point in my life? You see what I mean?
Yeah. I'm wondering if you're turning into a boomer.
Me too.
Right?
Me too. Yeah.
Right. Back in the day.
Back in my day, we didn't have any microtransactions. It was just the good times. You bought the game from Blockbuster and you took it home and you played it for 3 days.
That's how it was for me too. Let me tell you what. what happened is you'd go to a game and you'd purchase it. And then
Imagine that.
The game was yours. You didn't need none internet.
No.
To play it.
It was great. It really was.
Yeah, I didn't
I
need to
remember
be
it all too well.
a single player game didn't need to be connected to their multiplayer server. I could just play it by myself. When my cow stepped on my Ethernet cable, I could just keep playing.
What the hell's a battle pass? I never heard of that. Yeah, I know all too damn well. It's sad. I don't know where it's gonna go.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, it might just be being a boomer. I don't know. I think that's a big part of it, at least.
Yeah, so I kind of feel that way too. Like, I wonder if it's the boomer within me, but I do feel like what's happening, kind of like what I think you captured it well, that a lot of game designers are trying to make a game that's that you're compelled to play as opposed to enjoyable to play. Can I just share like a bizarre experience I had like about a year ago?
Absolutely.
So I was at so I used to be in Boston, and sometimes I would go to like business networking events.
Ooh.
And so sometimes like at these business networking events, like you'd meet people who are like, in different industries. And so like I met like this MBA who was interested in the gaming industry. He was like, yeah, like I'm like I work in the gaming industry. And I was like, awesome. What games do you like? And he was like, oh, I don't like games. I don't play them. I was like, what interests you? And he was like, oh, like, I think that the monetization opportunities are like really fantastic. And I was like, no.
Yeah, he works at Activision now. I know who that is.
Yeah, and I was like, they actually exist. Like, people are, and you know what it reminds me of actually is can I tell you another random story? I guess I'm the one telling stories today. So when I was training to become a psychiatrist, I had this eye-opening lecture from this absolutely brilliant guy, and his name is Dr. Freudenreich. And so we were talking about medicine and the practice of medicine within like medicine and healthcare. So I'm a doctor, I practice medicine, but in my job it's like healthcare. There's like a hospital, there's insurance, there's billing, there's administration, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, if you don't like your job and you don't like healthcare, the problem is that, 20 years ago, a hospital system had something called the Forms Committee. Can you imagine what the Forms Committee does?
They probably process forms.
Yes, absolutely.
That's literally it.
Yeah. So they process forms, and the committee actually makes the forms. So there's a group of people who decides what are the forms that people need to fill out. And when the Forms Committee was launched, they asked doctors to be a part of it. And can you imagine what the doctors said?
No, please no.
Absolutely. We hate paperwork. We hate it. I didn't go to medical school and train for 7 years to become a neurosurgeon and devote over a decade of my life so I could figure out what forms need to be filled out. I did it to do neurosurgery on people with brain cancer. And so there were no doctors on the Forms Committee. And then what happened is all these people decided which forms the neurosurgeon has to fill out. And then we lost the battle. And this is what's happening in the gaming industry now, is that like, we've got people who aren't gamers who are designing video games.
That's just about right. And they just necessitate a need for themselves, because like if they'll always come out with new forms or new things that you have to do because they don't want to, show how useless they are. I think that happens a lot too. It's like they're kind of creating a problem and then presenting themselves as a solution for it. And I think that happens with a lot of games too.
Can you share a little bit more about that? How do you know that?
I mean, like, it's a lot of things. I think that really, like, one example of this is like in the game I play a lot, World of Warcraft. Like, they will release like some sort of, like, let's say it's a way to get really good armor or to like make your legendary weapons or something like that, and you will have to repeat a process over and over and over in a way that is transparently just a method of extending your playtime rather than making you enjoy the content. So you do this over and over and over, and then later on, like maybe a year later, they will make it easier in the way that people initially wanted it to be 1 year ago. And it's just crazy. Like it, and like it, as I said, it kind of lifts it pulls the curtain away, and you can just see all the machinery in the back. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? You just see him in the little room broadcasting, and it's no longer this like experience that you have. The willing suspension of disbelief is removed, and you're just stuck there like a rat in a maze. It sucks.
It sounds terrifying. Or, I mean, you know, I feel like I gotta share this. I'm hopeful though. So I think like at the end of the day, like, did you play Hades?
I played it for maybe 20 minutes. I had fun for those 20 minutes though.
So I think Hades is a great example. Like, I absolutely love the game, and I think it's like an example. What I'm terrified of is the AAA clones of Hades.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're coming.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, absolutely. And like the game, it's not like I stopped playing it because I didn't want to. I just stopped playing it because I had to go back to streaming, and that's why. And I haven't really had time to play it. But yeah, it was a really fun game. I enjoyed it. It was very clean. It was very well designed. And there's some things that are just kind of missing. Did you play Valheim? I kind of got the same experience with that too.
I love Valheim.
Yeah, yeah. And that's something made by 5 people, right? And it just feels like you know, these big game companies. I told people that they're instead of too big to fail, it's too big to succeed. That's really the way I feel. It's like it takes them forever to do anything. It's like overproduced, and they have like this fixation on, you know, the lighting on a character's nose rather than the gameplay that everybody goes with.
Yeah, I remember hearing about Dragon Age Origins 3.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you played the original Dragon Age, but the original Dragon Age. Oh, we just got $1,000 donation.
Holy shit!
And
what
it seems
god.
like,
oh my god.
as someone who struggles with mental health, what you're doing is invaluable. Thank you.
Complaining about video games.
I was gonna say, I don't know. So the funny thing now is like, I don't know if that person is talking about what we're talking about now.
Yeah, it's just like a general statement.
Yeah, or is it? So now I'm genuinely confused whether, you know, talking about how depressing and predatory the video game landscape now is like with the public good that we're doing, or is it when we talk about like depression and anxiety and learning to love yourself?
It's probably just it's like somebody is saying it besides them, and it's like, okay, you know, there's a guy that graduated from Harvard who thinks the same damn thing that I did. I'm not crazy. You know, I think that's really what it is. I remember every time that I hear somebody else saying what you're saying, it always is a little bit validating for me too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the support, folks.
Yeah.
So, you know, just a couple other things. Like, I think that, like, you know, I hear what you're saying in terms of Activision being predatory and whatnot, but like part of the thing though, Asmund, is I still think that like these AAA game companies like actually make really amazing games. Like, I loved Warcraft 3, loved StarCraft. SC2 was like, okay. And like, you know, WoW was amazing. I think Overwatch is like genuinely like a very good game. You know, people may disagree, but like, I think a lot of the, you know, the big evil people actually do make really amazing games.
I agree, but I think that it's a very sad state of affairs that most of the examples that you gave were over 10 years ago.
But we'll say that. I'm sure we'll say that about Diablo Immortal, right? Won't we add that to the list?
I think that Diablo Immortal. Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? That's a very tough one. And like that's one of the things I just wish they made a PC port for it. I'd play it if it was on the PC, just see what it's like. But they don't even do that for some reason. I have no idea why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we just talking about? Are we like boomers reminiscing about the old?
Well, it's a metaphor, right? Because the games are like it's what I spend my time doing, and it's like I played games all my life, and I enjoy them, and I don't really enjoy them as much now, and it's like, why is that? Is it because I'm older? Is it because the games are worse? And that's what I meant. It's like hard to decide. It's like kind of like I'm 30 now, and I say that all the time because I still can't even come to terms with it. It's scary, and I've done this for, like, basically I've streamed and sat in my room all day, every day, and played video games for pretty much my whole adult life, and I've loved it. The